Yo, crooked, corrupt, criminal crime boss with cream, cocaine hustler, blowing out the brains of busters. Be in my mansion, chilling, inhaling ganja smoke, counting mad cream, weighing tons of coke, guarded by thugs and rock rollers. I flood the streets with drugs and clock dollars. Niggas get plugged with my Glock collars. Skunk smoker, Philly and Al Ripper, Cristal sipper. I've been a Willie for a while, nigga. Gruff got hoes, the man with all the nachos. Expensive hot clothes, drop top rolls. East Coast, West Coast, fiends overdose. Gruff get the cream with my team and I'm ghost.
This money be tempting me to jump out the MPV. MP3, clicks hollow tips with no sympathy. Since 14, I sold morphine for more green. Kept open in Nordica coat under the drawstring and watched out for cops. Squad cars and beamers and large Meninas. Flee the country to Argentina. Lay back in the beach chair coasting with commuters. Smoking the Buddhas on the cruise line boat to Aruba for a while, yo. Pump the valve so I can pal go. Then become a Harlem Kingston. Just like Alpo get paid so I can lay low in San Diego with Yayo and ship it out whenever I say so.
Yo, making this money's the American dream. East Coast to West Coast, you know what I mean. Whether it's uptown, downtown, you pick the scene. You got to get your own scheme. We ain't splitting this rain, yo, I'ma run it statically till they bury me. Count numerically, Bill for Beverly, more bands than Cherokee. President like Eric B. and Rakim. Drug game, I'm top 10. Locked in right now is not an option. And those who creek got the Mac in the heat. The guard with 5-inch screens in the back of the seat. And now they got this daddy bragging. Last year had me sagging, wasn't ready for Jimmy with bagging. Tossed me in the paddy wagon, but ain't nobody out here stopping love. Cause we was 12 years old in the Cotton Club popping bug. So all the fame without the fortune, goddamn you wrong. Killing Kid Cameron, surviving in the Amazon.
Yo, I leave these days and froze with all kinds of amazing flows. Money surrounded, I counted while bathing with Asian hoes. Back home niggas is after me. I'm at the sea sipping daiquiris. Coke the factory, fiend bagging a crack for me from. Cutting the rocks to investing in stocks. Nordica yachts and not busting out of my socks. Now that blood paid and chubby, all the ladies love me. They hate who made me hubby. Behind my back, they say my baby's ugly. Each night I sleep with frequent Lamborghini Jeeps. Neighbors be sneaking peeks. I have my scene at least between the sheets. Mess up my loot, I cut your collar, swan. But these is modern times. The only thing I see is dollars.
Yo, making this money's the American dream. East Coast to West Coast, you know what I mean. Whether it's uptown, downtown, you pick the scene. You got to get your own green. We ain't splitting this green.
To be seen clean in the mean beam. It's every teen's dream. Big L, supreme fiend with more green than Springsteen. You know I'm crazy, quick to smack a groupie. I'm known to mac a hoochie. Do I got stacks of Lucci? Absolutely. Harlem kids is known for felonies and selling keys. Pushing 300 C's, GS3s and puffing trees. These G's breeze while DTs be yelling freeze. We stash cheese and keep a pocket full of centuries. Ain't yo, I'm set for the rest of my life. Some clown that laid the threat cause I had sex with his wife. I stuck my tool in his brain so that I could fool and get slain. Nigga, yo, bitch chose me. You know the rules to the game.
Yo, making this money's the American dream. East Coast to West Coast, you know what I mean. Whether it's uptown, downtown, you pick the scene. You got to get your own scheme. We ain't splitting this green. Yo, making this money's the American dream. East Coast to West Coast, you know what I mean. Whether it's uptown, downtown, you pick the scene. You got to get your own scheme. We ain't splitting this green. Yeah, what? Harlem on the rise. Bloodshed, Killer Kid, 6 figures, COC, Chuck Lassie, my man, Mace, Bad Boy, Uptown, The Gruff, Big L, 139, NFL, 140, Uptown, nigga.
Education.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. She said she don't like that old shit, she wanna hear some new shit. The game that these lanes be running so stupid, juvenile and foolish, she long for a change. Yeah, that will be refreshing for her brain. Her ears are deaf to all the nonsense, she wanna hear some progress. It's too easy for her, you gotta make it complex. Provoke her thoughts, take her to another level. Engage her intelligence, make her feel special. She a fan of rap music, she love the way I do it. She said she missed me while I was gone. These other dudes been dropping fast food shit, microwave songs. It's time for something different, something prepared with love. People say she too bougie, finicky, choosy, but she a Pisces, indecisive when she do things. She wanna make sure she make the right choice. Well, baby girl, you smart as hell if you can hear my voice. Yeah. Lil' homie said, music ain't the same. He said it's not the business, the artists are to blame. He only listen to Eazy-E and Too Short, cause these new fools too flashy, too much flaws, too much conceit, not enough consistency, too much beefing instead of making hits. They all take their fans for granted, they unappreciative of their God-given talent. He said he liked the rappers better when they broke, cause when they get that money they lose touch with the folks. Back up in the hood that made them famous from the Getty up. Forgot about the Getty, yo, that's why you keep getting stuck. That's why the first joint is always sold out and now they can't give away albums. He only 14 but Lil' Shorty know his shit, he do his homework. I value your point of view, kid.
We've got to stay alive. We're gonna chase those crazy ballets. Chase those crazy ballets.
They froze, hands rose, hose down, the audience chose sound. I on the nose when I spit it, they It's natural, actual, factual. It's natural, actual, factual. Whoa. Now maybe it was justice to have just us whipping you. Sipping brew between my verses, I'm hipping you. Till my feelings very strong when I like the song. Am I right to song prolong the set? Only a few regrets. I should have paused there, heard applause where I didn't swear. I hit it on the nose. When I spit it, they froze. Hands rose, hose down, the audience chose sound. Oddly since probably imprints from the last time. Hooked them, mass minds took them words and related. Belated from the vibe, I paid the extra attention. Check the intentions I have. Whack prevention in effect, 7 more legends on deck. Prevalent minds of all kinds under one roof, enjoying the truth. I spoke clearly, nearly perfect enunciation. Hear me raise them hands, you give me power, enable me to stand. I tower, devour the false pretense. Unsigned means indecent, one's mind makes the sequence he lives out. We give about enough energy to go round twice, so when the flow sounds nice, it's doubly a pleasure. Now does that measure up to expectation? Can you feel it? Does it give you a fresh sensation? Caressed, embraced, and laced with the finest additives, I had to give it to you straight. No boundaries, I've found the keys to the lock that blocks my entry to justice. A sound to please, profound with ease. I rock, don't stop this century. I bust, it's natural, actual, factual. It's natural, actual, factual. Far from make-believe, achieved in the flesh, well received, I've seen it with my own eyes. And I've known guys to try and build us down, conceal the sound from the mass, we steal the towns. Topic of talk and assault on the insecure, when for sure you know we mean no harm. Be armed with only IQs, turning heads like fly shoes. Never seen this ever clean crew, lives whatever dream dreamt, and any failed attempts won't remain due to attain desire to prosper. Admire the author's offering, Scoffer brings things so relevant, you hella been on the wordplay. On an absurd day I come weak, feel dumb, seek out another path, speak out, feel my wrath. Emotion, devotion to the art, from start to finish I'm in it, replenishing the goodness as best I know how. Impressed if no wow, I feel fresh still, no rest till mission accomplished. Never a pompous troublemaker, do a double take for goodness sake, I speak the truth. For real, every time I open my mouth. No boundaries, I found the keys to the lock that blocks my entry to justice. A sound of please, profound with ease. I rock, don't stop this century. I bust, it's natural, actual, factual. Whoa, it's natural, actual, factual. It's natural, actual, factual. It's natural.
Yeah, welcome to The Machine Lies, where we talk about the lies of the machine on the machine that lies. We got a special thing for you guys today, in terms of our Tuesday presentation, right? It's been building up to a sort of different show, right? And I'd like to make it a progressively more comprehensive show on political theology, right? So if we could get to political theology and look at the roots of sort of secular humanism, right? So we're sort of touching on the roots of secular humanism. We're looking at the sort of the postmodernists, right? And looking at the synthesis of sort of secular humanism into techno-liberalism, right? And so we got a huge sort of development there, right? So if I could look at the view of the archetypal man, right, or this idea of universalism, right, Which, if you could really understand this idea, right, it is sort of where, as we stated many times, it's sort of where individualism and collectivism merge, right? Sort of uneasy synthesis, right, of modern society, right? But where it comes from is the ancient conceptions of man, right? And the various ideas of the relationship between man, nature, and God, right? And now, of course, man, nature, and God also relate to our understanding of knowledge, right? So if we could look at the epistemological framework, right, that sort of changes in each instance, right? Our idea of how we gain knowledge changes, right? Right. And of course, in terms of ethics and epistemology, right, where those things merge, our relationship to politics changes and our relationship to the state changes, right? And that's why we've been configuring this idea of the apotheosis of the state, right, to put in terms of Hobbes, right? He said it's the artificial man, right? The artificial man, right? That is the sovereign, is to be like a god among men. Let me actually get the text here, right? I actually have a translation out here, right, of Hobbes, right? All right. I got a translation of Hobbes. Man, we pissed a lot of people off. We did the opposite of campaigning for popularity, okay? We sort of did an anti sort of break, barn burner, all right, with a lot of the internet groups, right? But we meant no harm. We're just sort of giving our opinion, right? A lot of people felt it was time to critique our work, right? So we simply responded to their critiques, right? But yeah, let me go ahead and try to open up Hobbes here, right? And he says at some point in this, he's talking about the artificial man. Okay, here we go. Is this the passage? Okay, here we go. Yeah, this is the passage. I'm sorry. This is the passage on chapter 17, it says here, right? Chapter 17 of the causes of generation and definition of a commonwealth. Of the causes and generation and definition of a commonwealth, right? So he's defining the state in this particular thing, and this is where the ideas come from. Now look at what he says here. He says, okay, the commonwealth is the foresight of their own preservation and of a more contented life thereby. That is to say, getting themselves out from the miserable condition of war, which is necessarily consequent, as hath been shown. Right? He talks about the natural condition as being a war of all against all. Right? Bellum omnium omnes. Right? The war of all against all, right? I believe that's how it's said, right? In the Latin, right? But he's talking about to avoid this war of all against all, right? We forfeit part of our liberty to the Commonwealth, right? We give our sovereignty to the Commonwealth, right? This is the basic nub of the idea of secular humanism. How it ties to to the epistemological framework is a little bit different. Here it is. He says, the laws of nature, as justice, equality, modesty, mercy, and in some doing others as we would be done to themselves, right? So there's the golden rule, right? And this idea of the basic equality between men, right? Resting on the notion of the laws of nature, right? Because everyone is defined by the laws of nature, right? Nobody's separate, right? Nobody's beyond the laws of nature, right? This is why we need to constitute all of our power or sublimate all of our sovereignty into the sovereignty of the Commonwealth, right? Is because of the epistemological nature of the way we ascertain knowledge from nature, right? It's based on preset laws, right? That's based on our rational capability, right? Based on the ordering principle that exists within nature and nature's God, right? So we could elevate ourselves through the principles of reason, right? Mercy, benevolence, justice, etc., to emulate the laws of nature, which are so ordered. Now, what he says next is really just staggering, right? What he says next is pretty staggering, right? Because not only has he established, right, the notion of this war of all against all, or this ethical framework that defines the human misery, right, or the limits of what a man can do for himself, right, and then sublimates that within the common will, right? So this common will, right, this external apparatus of the state, this notion of giving up your sovereignty into the power of the state, and the notion of the laws of nature or the state of nature, right, being something that limits us in common, right? So equality comes from the notion of the laws of nature, and this was the same thing for 2,000 years, right? Plato didn't disagree, neither did the church disagree, neither did the Kabbalists and the Jews and the Talmudists disagree with any of this stuff, right? Neither did the Muslims disagree, right? Right? They all got to the idea that natural law, right, is based on an ordering principle in nature, right? And whether they thought this intelligence was inherent within nature, right, or was delineated by God, right? There's many of them that thought the intelligence was already inherent within nature, right? The Platonists and the Aristotelians and the Hermeticists, right? Right, because remember, we went over this notion of Hermeticism, right? And the notion that the laws of nature sort of are the mediation, right? The mediator between God and the world, right? So God has to create through these laws of nature. So if man organizes his rationality to go with these laws of nature, he can transcend his limitations through reason, right? And order the world either as a God, right? Or in terms of the way God ordered the world, right? So I presented several things there, right? Blessings.
You're reading. You're reading Thomas Hobbes, right?
Yeah, I'm reading Thomas Hobbes right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Which book?
Leviathan. Yeah.
Yeah, Leviathan. Yeah.
Yeah.
That did sound like oddly. It sounded like a lot of occult stuff.
Right. I know. Oh, just wait. That's what I'm getting to. Because look what he says here. He says reduce all their wills by plurality of voices unto one will, which is as much as to say to appoint one man or assembly of men to bear their person. What odd language, right? And every one to own and acknowledge himself to be the author of whatsoever he that so beareth, their person shall act and cause to be acted in those things which concern the common peace and safety, and therein submit their wills, every one to his will, and their judgments to his judgments. Now, here's the key part. It says, by covenant of every man with every man. Now, notice the terminology, covenant. Covenant is a distinctly religious terminology, right? Covenant is what God made with the Jews. Paul made a covenant. Paul had talked about the covenant was expanded to the Gentiles, right? Right. So this idea of a covenant with God is massive, right? It's simply a massive idea, right? Okay. So he says here, in a very religious tone, right? Covenant of every man against every man in the manner if every man should say to every man, I authorize and give up my right of governing myself to this man and to this assembly of men on this condition. On this condition that thou give up thy right to him and authorize all his actions in like manner. Now this is how he defines the civil union, right? Right, the commonwealth, right? The state, right? This done, the multitude so united in one person is called the commonwealth or the civitas. Now, how does he characterize this generation of this one person through the common will that's both attuned to natural law, right? By the elevation of human reason, right? But also to supplant the war of all against all, this rugged individualism, right? That sort of suggests that, we're all destroy each other, right, in the end, right? So he characterizes it thusly. He says, this is the generation of the great Leviathan, which is a biblical term, right? Or rather, to speak more reverently, of the mortal God, which we owe under the immortal God our peace and defense. So check that out. Mortal God being the state. You don't have to wait to Hegel to get to the conception of the state as a sort of spiritual entity or spiritual vessel, right? That's catalyzed the common will of the people, right? And of course, he's using the idea of economics being primary to politics with this notion of the commonwealth, that enterprise and sort of colonialism will be the purpose of this great enterprise, right? Okay, so in that notion of the mortal God, right? Now let me get Locke here, right? Because we're talking about the apotheosis of man and the apotheosis of God, right, and so on and so forth, right? And the not the apotheosis, the apotheosis of the state, right? Sorry. Now here's Locke, right? In section 42, right? He says the great art of government and the prince who shall be so wise and godlike as by established laws of liberty to secure protection and encouragement to the honest industry of mankind against the oppression of power, narrowness of party, will quickly be too hard for his neighbors, but this by and by, to return to the argument in hand. Right, so he's talking about how there is a wise prince that enlarges the estates through honest industry, right? This is a sort of hidden power, right, that exists within the state, right? Right, which is part of this common weal, right? And what is it? It's a spirit of enterprise, right? But what's so interesting, he says, the prince so wise and godlike, as by established laws of liberty to secure protection, right? So this idea of the state resembling the God, right? Of course, they took this from the biblical ideas, right? From the salvation history of the Jews, right? From the notion of God, king, and people with the church and the state, right? That used to sort of have a kind of synergistic relationship, right? If we look at the work of St. Thomas Aquinas, right? But the problem there, right, within Plato, right? Plato creates the notion of the ideal state, right? And this is sort of followed in the ideas of St. Augustine, right? The city of God, right? And the city of man, right? Right? And of course, the city of man sort of resembles like Rome, right? And so, in terms of St. Thomas Aquinas, right, he talks about the separation of church and state in terms of their being separate but equal, right? One for earthly duties and one for heavenly duties, right? But each balancing each other in their own distinct spheres, just as faith and reason balance each other, right? Right. So it's interesting, right? So there's this already in the 1200s, right? There's a notion of a separation between earthly and heavenly duties, right? Okay, which is supported by Plato, right? And if you go on with this, right, you and you look at the notions of nature and the state and God coming into the frame, right? Well, we've extrapolated many different movements, right, of how this sort of matrix of enslavement was built, right? Okay, through tricknology and science, right? Obviously, right? But where did the fact that those things become the centerpiece of our notion of progress, right, really come from, right? Where did the pseudo-eschatology of progress actually arise, right? Okay, and where did this notion of the universal man that uses reason as a separation from nature really arise, right? Because this universally, right? Okay, it's sort of, as I explained many times on the show, right? It's spatially dislodged. Man is spatially dislodged by a separation from nature, right? They're temporally dislodged, right, by the notion of the myth of progress, right? So sort of space-time access has been uprooted by sort of templexity, as the accelerationists have pointed out. But yeah, go ahead, Avian.
Thomas Hobbes and the social contract theory, do you think it's connected to Mephistopheles? I can't pronounce his name, from Guattari.
Sisyphus, yeah. Interesting.
Mephistopheles or something.
Sisyphus, yeah. Yeah, perhaps the sort of misanthropic, the scientific misanthropy, right? The sort of reduction of man to these pulleys and string systems, right? Right. He says that man is nothing more than a machine, right? And he goes on to describe man as a machine, right? In his sort of epistemological framework. He says the muscles are nothing but strings and pulleys and stuff. So he describes the human body in terms of Newtonian mechanics. It's a very strange sight. Right, he reduces the man to pure mechanism, right, to pure appetites, right. So he's actually, his ethical philosophy was akin to hedonism, right. He would have greatly inspired people like Bentham and all these types of people, right. So yeah, it's actually really strange, for a political access or a building point from where Western political thought actually arises, right, as a response to Machiavelli, right? So, so Hobbes sort of refers to Machiavelli as a fool, right? And then Locke sort of directly argues with Hobbes and Hooker, another guy, right? He uses Hooker against I think Filmer, right? Who wrote Patriarchy, right? Is that Robert Filmer, right? Yeah, Robert Filmer, Patriarcha, right? Most of the work of Locke, as we discussed in many of our explanations and presentations, right, is a response to the notion of patriarchy, right? Locke sort of argues that Adam, right, was not given dominion by God, right? But he had to work for his land, right, through the sweat of his brow, right? So he was actually required to create from nature through labor, right? And so he said that Adam actually had to create his own property, right? So Adam got property through work, right? And he says that this is established early on in the Bible, right? That people gain property through work. Right, so he says it's not because Adam's sons were heirs of Adam that they owned stuff, right? And it's not if Adam governed those the will of his children as if they were his servants, right? He argued actually his children were free to go and use nature to attain their own property through work, right? By using rational means and not interfering with other people's property and and all this type of stuff. So they said he argued in a very sort of legalistic way, right? Okay. Going back and forth through these biblical passages, right? That God never gave Adam private dominion, but he gave him private property, right? And so he establishes proto-capitalism, right? Right now, these ideas about nature and property, right, and labor, right, and work and wealth and all this stuff, and about humane industry, right? These were extrapolated on by Marx, right? Who was using the engine of Hegelian philosophy, right, with his idea of dialectical materialism. And here is Moritz, right? Check this out. It was Moritz who actually extrapolated this in terms of the exegetical idea of thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? So people popularly say that that's what the Hegelian dialectic is. That is not the Hegelian dialectic. That is an exegetical interpretation of the Hegelian dialectic by Heinrich Moritz Kalibas, right? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? Where Hegel was basically extrapolating on metaphysical ideas, right? He was saying that Kant's correspondence theory collapsed in on itself into a sort of phenomenological framework, right? Right, where mind and nature were sort of causing this notion of becoming, right? And this notion of becoming was like the world spirit moving through history, right? So Kant and Hegel, right? Kant believed in Swedenborg, right? So he followed a sort of utopianism, right? Okay, he believed in the world government, right? Hegel believed in the French Revolution. Okay, he thought that the world spirit would conquer, obviously it's a world spirit, right? So with the world spirit and the world government ideas, you have coming up, right? As soon as they develop this idea of the universal man, right? Which sort of ties into the notion of universal education, right? The Didactica Magna by Jan Amos Comenius, right? Okay, and these guys that were Hegelian philosophers, right? They studied Swedenborg. They studied Schleiermacher, right? Okay, and they studied, a lot of these ideas that I mentioned, right? And of course, Hegel supported the French Revolution. I said that earlier, right? Him and Schelling arose in the marketplace to plant a tree of liberty, right? Arose in the morning to plant a tree of liberty in the marketplace, or whatever, right? As Stuther said, right? And Marx got kicked out of the French Commune, right? In France, right? So he's sort of developing his political theories as well, right? So we got a good little breakdown there, right? And we've been sort of floating around recently. Okay, we did a lot of interesting streams. I'll make a mention to those at the end of the show so I don't get caught up, so the show's more organized, right? But if I could catalyze these ideas, right? We're sort of looking at man, right? Okay, to catalyze Marx's ideas, right? Okay, we're looking at the idea of separation between man and women, right? By this notion of universal prostitution, right? Okay, and this idea that nature is sort of the sublimation of man's will through the commodification of man, right? So he's drawing on Feuerbach there, right? this idea of alienation, that we felt alienation within nature. We felt estranged from nature, so we created the concept of God, right? As a sort of response to this Hobbesian predicament that we were in, right? This war of all against all, right? We sort of created a useful fiction, right? And this is what the transhumanists say about God, right? They say God is a useful fiction. Like, for example, I think this is what Yuval Noah Harari says, right? Yet there's other transhumanists, right? Like Ray Kurzweil and Marvin Minsky, that say God will come out of our creations, right? They also compare the universe to man's creations, just like Hobbes did. They say man is a machine, right? Say the brain is like a machine, or machines could be more powerful than brains, right? They've made those ideas. They've also said that God will emerge through our creations instead of us coming from God, right? They say God will emerge from something we make, right? And something that emulates nature, right? Because nature is, according to Kurzweil's simulation, but it's weird because nature created our mind, right? So if we compare nature to something we can make, right? It seems kind of strange, right? Sort of inversion of it all, right? But nevertheless, they say that, you know, the machine will be like a god to us, right? They've even said that AI will be this vehicle, right? Including, I mean, as I mentioned, Ray Kurzweil and Marvin Minsky, right? But there's also Nick Bostrom, who talks about the golem as an expression of transhumanism, right? Taking the inanimate and turning into the, you know, to a living being, right? As was rumored to have taken place by Rabbi Akiva, right? He like created a golem, right? And of course, Rabbi Akiva, I believe the same guy, right? He talks about Adam Kadmon, right? So he speaks of man in a sort of universal mode, right? It's pretty interesting, right? Right, just as Marx and Hegel and Plato talked about, right? The archetypal man, the universal man, right? Yeah, blessings to Brown's boy. Right? So yeah, I'll go over this transformation of separation of man from God and separation of nature from God, and separation of man from man, right? And the various syntheses that I've been sort of presenting about God and nature, right? Through the various ideas of man becoming God or attuning himself to the understanding of nature, right? So these are all different ideas, right? That we're working with here, and we're dealing with the history of transhumanism. Blessings. I appreciate you guys. Let me take a look at the chat here, and then I'll continue, right? Take a look at you guys. Okay, I might get some water from the other side of the room. I'm getting a little bit parched here. But yeah, it says, made in Empire's image. Blessings, brother. I appreciate you. You got the link somewhere in the chat. I don't think too many people have chatted. Just Frank, I appreciate you. The Panelverse presents. I greatly appreciate your time. Just Frank, thank you for being here. The brother Avian Buddha. Of course, it's always a blessing to see you, friend. Yeah, SNL. Blessings. Shadow Buddha. Lowdown. Neutral Ground. Blessings. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, howdy, friend. How you doing today? Yeah, we got the link out here. Blessings. Yeah, come through. I know the topics are heavy, but you know, we could figure it out. Gregor, blessings. Elvis Trump, I appreciate you. Neutral ground. Dominic, blessings. Browns boy, I appreciate you, man. You know, thanks for doing that, man. You know, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, spiritual hug, exactly. Dominic, triple OG, Zephyr, another OG in the chat. I appreciate you guys. Heavy hitters, Shadow Buddha, real heavy hitter. Yeah, blessings, brother. I appreciate you. Calix, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Yeah, I ain't worried about it, man. Don't worry about this. It's popularity contest. People make fake accounts. Shit. I didn't promote the thing there, but yeah. But they did come on my show to promote it, so I thought I didn't have to, right? So it's all good, man. You know, I'm not worried. We know who the real champ is, right? People can come and debate us. We can find out who the real champ is. All right, it's cool. They get slaughtered for sure every single time. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah, blessings, my friend.
Yeah, so this is from page 44 of Ilo. The revolution resulted not from the exploitation of coal, but rather from a change of attitude on the part of the whole civilization. Here we are faced with the most difficult question. Why, after such slow progress for centuries, did such an eruption of technical progress take place in a century and a half? Why, at a certain moment in history, did something become possible which had not seemed possible before? We must confess that the ultimate reason escapes us. Why did invention suddenly burst forth in the second half of the 18th century? We cannot say. Here we are at the center of the mystery of invention, which strangely came to life for this brief moment. So you're looking at the occultist, and you're looking at the political philosophies of Hobbes and Locke, and you're trying to like trace that and try to figure out why the inventions burst forth, right? Like, yeah, am I correct?
Yeah, and he sort of backtracks on the 16th century, right? First of all, he says magic is a sort of primitive technique, right? So he says magic is primitive technique, and then he also says that this idea of universalism, right? And he also brings up the notion that the church was responsible for this, or Christianity was responsible for this, right? So he briefly touches on that concept as well. Right now, I'm not willing to go the whole bite the whole neo-pagan, right? You know, sort of that entire route, right? But I'm willing to go with him and understand why technique was kept at bay for so long, right? Or apparently for so long, right? But yeah, he backtracks during the 16th century explanations. Let me grab my Ellul book, right? You know, and open up his chapter on historical development here, right? He's got a little thing that he does, historical development, right? And he gets to the 16th century, right? And he says this whole thing about, you know, it didn't,
what page?
You know, that the Renaissance held back techniques and stuff because of the search for beauty and all this stuff. And
yeah, what page? What
page? This is starting on 40, right?
40, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about there, you know, the ideal of universality, right? At the end of the page, there's a paragraph. He says, this explains a characteristic of the books written after the century of humanism, their lack of convenience. We find few table of contents, no references, no divisions, etc., etc. But he says the books of time were not written to be used along with hundreds of others, locate a piece of information accurately and quickly. They were not written to be consulted. They were written to be read patiently in their entirety and mediated upon. Again, this goes back to the ideal of universality. And he talks about Renaissance humanism right on 41. And he says that they didn't give themselves over to means, but like later he talks about the French Revolution. You know, he says in the French Revolution, there's no more privileged persons, no special interests. Everyone must serve in accordance with strictures of technique.
right? And there he talks about different things. He talks about plasticity of social milieu, rise of individualism, instead of natural groupings, right? So I think over there he's sort of talking about this idea of the rise of individualism, the notion of, you know, the mass man or whatever, right? And then finally he says, well, it ends up having, there's a notion between scientific, you know, research and technical invention, right? That really opens the door more than anything else, right? But he still mentions like universalism, right? Individualism, right? All of these insights, right? And actually, we looked at an interview of Ellul in the book Betrayal of the West. And there he talks about how individualism and equality and all these things and reason, using reason to master nature and all this stuff, that this stuff actually causes Western man to, betray himself in a way, right? By like using such a broad definition of society that it tears apart Western traditions which built the society in the first place, right? So this is the sort of snake eating its tail of Western thinking, right? So Ellul does sort of present that, right? So although him and Kaczynski both ultimately come to the idea that the European philosophers were not the cause of, technique, and neither does Skrbina, right? But Skrbina is willing to look at the ideas that caused it more than Ellul or Kaczynski, for sure. Right? Actually, Ellul says in the beginning of his book that studying Plato's theories will get you nowhere. He says studying Machiavelli will get you nowhere and understanding the modern scope. Right, so it's pretty interesting, right? He sort of throws all that stuff in the trash, whereas, one could take a more complex analysis, right? I think they fumbled. When I was reading his chapter on historical development, I saw many oddities. What does he mean technique is oriental, that it comes from the Orient? I don't know. I don't understand lines like this, right? He says technique is essentially oriental. This is what he says in the beginning, right? Like what? What does that even mean?
Well, magic, I think the etymology of magic come from the Magi or something.
Right. Maybe he meant something like that. Yeah.
I think maybe. Let me think. I don't know. Maybe it means stuff like alchemy, or like they have like some precursors or something like the geometric stuff, this sacred geometry stuff like that. I don't know, like, or rituals or something. Like maybe meant like rituals that induce a change state of change in mind or something. Like very strict rituals or something. Like from Mesopotamia or Babylon or something. Yeah, you have to research more. I may reading a book about that will be useful, like their astrology and their techniques, like from Sumerians or something, or maybe from Babylonians and stuff like that.
Yeah, I see the epistemology of Hobbes as relevant. Looking at human beings as machines, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a very bad one. That's like that's the more extreme. Yeah, it's like
using the terminology artificial man. The artificial man will be an immortal god. What a terminology. It's just grotesque in every way, right? I think it was Rousseau who said, if it wasn't for the printing press, the pernicious thoughts of Hobbes and Spinoza would be in the dustbins of history. Right? And it's probably true, right? Nobody would have held up their writings, right, if it wasn't for a printing press.
The printing press is when it really mass literacy started to grow and stuff, and also these ideas were distributed more out, and also distributed the ideas, right? Like it made it more easily accessible, and more people were talking about it, and the proliferation of the ideas. They see. I'm thinking here. Yeah. Yeah, the thing is there's a lot of stuff that there's some change of more knowledge can or like more uh the change in the assumptions or something can change how we answer these questions. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think it's interesting.
yeah.
But yeah, in terms of Alul, he is, he is a pretty robust thinker. But yeah, his idea of this sudden appearance of technique, I think, is based on the information he had at the time, right? So he didn't understand, so much about transhumanism or so much about this notion of archaic revival, right? Or of evolution or this ebb and flow of histories. And I don't know if he actually compared like different histories of like Arnold Toynbee and like, Friedrich Nietzsche and different models of history and, movements of time itself, right? Nietzsche has the eternal recurrence. Arnold Toynbee has like this notion of spiral time where the past and present and future like intersect, and then, you have Ibn Khaldun who says like there's a ebb and flow of historical movement, a sort of cyclical movement throughout history, right? So there's these various modes of looking at history itself, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, you understood what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Yeah, it does influence the way you see it. And let me think. Okay, what else I want to say? There's something else that I thought was valuable. So it is kind of crazy how fast things are rapidly proceeding now. It's almost frightening. I mean, it is frightening, but yeah. And the question is like, how do we stop at this point? Because during Teddy's time, they didn't have stuff like like data centers or big data. You know what I mean? What it's called. But now we have that. It only happened in like a span of 10 years or something. But maybe DARPA already had it or something. But it's much more rapid now. I did read Technological Society, but is there any part where Elul says that it will just keep getting faster and faster? Like you know what I'm saying? Like they say that anyway. I don't even know.
Yeah, I think he kind of does. I'll go to that part in a minute. But yeah, it says here, yeah, he did talk about how like the technology moves at like an exponential pace, whereas society moves at like a very linear, like
yeah.
Yeah. So he kind of made the same argument that Skrbina makes. Not Skrbina, but Kaczynski makes about like long-term changes within a society, right? That technological progress happens faster than society develops, right? So this is one thing that Alul, says. But yeah, here to answer Creek Mary, right? He says magic preceded technique, right? He said magic developed along with other techniques as an expression of man's will to obtain certain results of a spiritual order, right? So I can't find the line exactly where he says magic is primitive technique, right? But he says in the spiritual realm, magic displays all the characteristics of a technique. It is a mediator between man and the higher powers, just as other techniques mediate between man and matter, right? So I often pair this with the quote that, any technology that's sufficiently developed is indistinguishable from magic, right? So I talk about that idea. So one way I define technology is obfuscation of the means to a particular end, right? Or concealment of means to a particular end, or massification of means to a particular end, or complexification of means to a particular end. But either way, it's hiding the means, right? So as Alul says, technique creates means, and those means are the property of specialists, right? So it also compartmentalizes knowledge, right? So so there's this massification and complexification that happens together, right? And that's really the problem that he's pointing out. Now let me go to the passage and try to talk about sort of Alul talking about this transhumanism, right? Maybe we sort of talked about this earlier, right? But yeah, let me open this up.
and then we'll move to a sort of video and go to the later part of our show, which is basically about reflecting on Marx and Hegel, right, and their respective philosophies, right? Okay, here it is. He says the creation of technical humanism. The third element of hope is the fact that these human techniques have tended to reconstitute the unity of human being, which had been shattered by the sudden jarring action of technique. The grand design of human technique is to make man the center of all techniques. And this is actually one of the things he says about the technological society, right? He says the technological society actually operates by making man, man becomes objectification. It's objectification of man to techniques, right? So this whole idea, right, that man, the idea of the technique of conditioning man itself becomes the centerpiece of society, right? So he says this is his own definition of the technological society, right? Is it makes man, or the conditioning of man, or the recreation of man, the centerpiece of the society itself, right? So this is his notion of technical humanism, which I've sort of regarded as, I've expanded it to a sort of ideological framework, right? Techno-liberalism. But the idea is right here, right? Obviously. He says, to reconstitute the unity of a human being which had been shattered by the sudden jarring action of technique, the grand design of human technique is to make man the center of all techniques. He has been torn in every direction by the technical forces of the modern world and is no longer able of himself, at least on the individual level, to preserve his unity. But this lost unity can be restored by technique to an abstract level of science. There's no doubt the technique can encounter this is the part. He said, there is no doubt that technique can counter technique, and abstractly man can thereby be restored to unity. A group of techniques is to be formed, therefore centered on a concept of man and activated by the human techniques. This is the fourth glorious element, the prospect of the creation of a Superman. He will not appear tomorrow, but serious biologists already speak of the possibilities of chemical conditioning in the near future, and more distantly, a parthenogenesis, and ectogenesis, and embryonic conditioning. But then he says it is useless to dwell on these theories here. They're only remote possibilities. So see what I mean? Like he didn't know enough in his time, that like they weren't scientifically advanced enough in his time.
Yeah,
to, like,
you
actually
mention that page number quickly?
337.
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah, at the bottom there. Yeah. So he talks about genetic conditioning, that they're going to form a new man, sort of quote unquote Superman, that this will be the project of the technological society, that sort of transhumanism will be the central project, right? But yeah, then he says, this sort of theories are only possibilities. Well, now we know that they're not mere possibilities; they're actually realities, right? So,
Yeah. Do you think, in a way, like Sir Arabidino and D. Chardin, they could have been predictive programming, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think they were. Oh. Okay. All right. Okay. There we go. No wonder like why that wouldn't turn on for a second. But yeah, blessings. Yeah, we'll go ahead and turn some music on. But yeah, they're not. See, this is the thing, is that they're conditioned by premillennialism, right? I mean, not premillennial, millenarianism, right? And all these ideas, right? Sorry, I got confused with the thing Rocky's always talking about, premillennial. Yeah, that means that the millennium already happened, right? So no, this is millenarianism. That means that it's going to happen in the future, right? Right, that Christ is going to come and he's going to establish a kingdom on earth, right? So there's certain thinkers like Swedenborg and others, right, that I mentioned in the beginning,
okay, that were sort of, and obviously Blavatsky, right? So at this time, there were so many people that were pushing that idea and combining it with science and scientific worldview and socialism, right? They thought that there'd be a world socialist government, right? Okay, so Kant took the ideas of Swedenborg to extrapolate this, right? As I pointed out, so this notion of the apotheosis of the state, which we'll get more into in a second here, right? This is going to be the main push of the rest of the show, right? I've gotten like faster at talking, so if I'm talking too fast, tell me to slow it down, right? Because like as I've came up here more, I like start condensing the information quicker and quicker, sound bites. Or no, but yeah, so I'm gonna have to move forward, right? Because there's only so much time in a day, and I have to move and groove here. So me and Buddha will be coming at you after this music break. Blessings. And then we'll go with Hegel, Marx, and a few other subjects that I have lined up for you guys. First, we'll start with their text, and we'll look at biographical information about their lives, right? We'll try to conclude with all of that this time, but if we can't, we'll just save it for next time. It's no big deal, right? We're going to do like a sort of concluding show of this stuff, right? So we can move to Rousseau. I want to move to Rousseau and the Discourses of Inequality and save the Tuesday show for that and have it be like the entire show, right? So that'll be cool, right? Look at information about Rousseau next, right? So we'll be working through Technological Society, Mumford, and Rousseau, right? So this will be a blast, right? You guys will get really cued in on what's going on here. Okay, so inner vision. All right, let's go with this. Blessings. We'll be back.
That new girl in our bed? Oh yes, she's a swell kid. Why? You know her? Not very well. I wish I did. I don't know what it is, but there's something about her you like. Well, she always looks nice to start with. Yeah, especially when you compare her with some of the weird characters in it.
I remember as a youngin', slumming with my crusaders, Garcia Vegas, burglarizing neighbors for Segas, little schemers, counting Beamers, Benzes, and Acuras. It's tough to count blessings when battling Count Dracula. Life's veins, drain your blood in floods, can't wade in that water because of the rogue scuds. Role models taught us you ought to just roll up. In life there's no love, whatever your role was, find wealth. No need to find self, stand in line till you find your spot on the shelf. So, don't mean to sound cold, got my soul singing baritone, feeling down low. To think of those in this winter with no mink or folk, weather in this desert with no drink to cope. Some chain smoke with no link or hope, just dope, tree in a rope. You are the living truth of life. The past can't run from who they are. I'd run from self, but no man can run that far. You are the living truth of life. The past can't run from who they are. I'd run from self, but no man can run that far.
Turn the page, eventually I hit a certain age. Learned that all the freedom was worthless when you're afraid. Success can often be a perfect cage, searching for a way to stay the same while the world will change. A prisoner trapped in the regret, cause the ego can't keep up if they happen to reject it. Sometimes you want so bad to be respected, going after it till you left your happiness neglected. I've seen the weakness in grown men playing games with the pain they cheat but they don't win. See them feed the needle deep into their own skin, trying to find a fleeting bit of peace in that moment. More success to fix what's left, taking even bigger risks. Like after this I'll rest till he painted with the razor on his wrist. The red, the color of lips, pucker up bits, the kiss of death. You are the living truth of life.
The fastest can't run from who they are. I run from self, but no man can run that far. You are the living truth of life. The fastest can't run from who they are. I run from self, but no man can run that far. I'm busting loose, no Wilder, just a prior. And that debt was paid in spades and barbed wire. Later used eyes to weigh and move fire. Then moved crowds in ways with hellfire. Meet a fan, kick it with ya, take a picture, sign both titties and give a pound to your mister. It's been real, realer than steel out of grab before I picked up a pen and a pad. Shit, it's been chill, chiller than the look in the eye of a junkie when he's looking to buy, looking to fly. Pyrex on the good eye of a broke stove. Pyramid of cans, 10-4 with poke holes. Soft white girl break your nose and gives harder. Revenge of the Kane, the original Get Carter. Take your favorite star, make him into a martyr. Life ain't trending, it's ending. See father.
That new girl in our band class. Oh yes, Mrs. Buckhead. Why? You know her? Not very well. I wish I did. I don't know what it is, but there's something about her you like. Well, she always looks nice to start with. Yeah, especially when you compare her with some of the weird characters in this play.
Jimmy thinks that she has the key to popularity, parking in cars with the boys at night. When Jerry brags about taking Ginny out, he learns that she dates all the boys, and he feels less important.
Shit ain't comical, your mama, ho. Shit ain't comical, your mama, ho. I ain't came here to blame cats, cause I'm the same cat when it boils down to it. And really though, what would I gain from that? Not much, just a sense of temporary peace till I'm back in reach of the same issues. So this tune I created to get to the heart of the matter. Yeah, I'm smart, so I stab at it. See if it moves, see if it's dead or if it comes to some who know the kid. Call me Sir Diesel, I'm fucks with the fuel injected on people. Ain't come to teach fools, I just like to speak through the African rhythms. It's trapped in my system like the anguish and pain. It stays in my brain, in my DNA, but my peoples were saved from oblivion, living in the new millennium, free to achieve or be stupid or ignorant. Fuck it, I was brought up different. I do things different. My brain think different. Different guidelines. I stand up dude. Never was a hoe. I ain't going out. What you know about standing firm? My beliefs are mine. They may not be yours, but hey, I do it different. Standing firm. My beliefs are mine. They may not be yours, but hey, I do it different. When I started the rhyme, fools thought I was tripping. They all tried to diss it. I was basically a misfit. I paid it no attention. I knew that I was different. A few years later, I bought some equipment. Had homies who spit, I told them come kick it. Jinx showed me how to take a record and remix it. Cube said don't fuck with me if I stick with it. I didn't wait for nobody's permission, I did it. So brolic, with the flow so solid. Hold all y'all in bondage with this hip hop invasion. Spit toxic vapors, the nature of the game is to rape ya. So wait for space invaders with a laser scope. Cock rhymes I create with potent repercussions for people fronting. You know this, Oakland, all day, Richmond, Bay Area mania playing my position. Fuck it, I was brought up different. I do things different. My brain think different. Different guidelines. I stand up dude. Never was a hoe. I ain't going out. What you know about standing firm? My beliefs are mine. They may not be yours, but hey, I do it different. Standing firm. My beliefs are mine. They may not be yours, but hey, let me tell you who I am. The funky human being, a new species. Few feces on BG. It's easy, early, otherworldly, dumb security. In my purity, in my recipe. Interestingly, it's my destiny. Been spitting phlegm on the instant whim. I'm different from them. Slang in my language, I'm anxious to distinguish myself from the layman's interpretation of banging. Slamming rhymes in you like a cannon. Mind state deep like a canyon. To the point that it ain't deep as it seems in my previous observations. It's evolved to a basic blueprint, able to be modified with movement where the need be. Add improvements like the bluesmen before me that show the path that I walk on now, and I hold the flag. Diesel, I was brought up different. I do things different. My brain think different. Different guidelines. I stand up dude. Never was a hoe. I ain't going out. What you know about standing firm? My beliefs are mine. They may not be yours, but hey, I do it different. Standing firm. My beliefs are mine. They may not be yours, but hey, I do it different.
Yeah, blessings to Reddington. Thank you for joining. What's going on, sir?
Yo, satellite dinner. It's probably why I'm late.
Nice. It's dope. Got a full stomach. It's blessings, man. Yeah, so check this out. Teleus Logos, or perfect discourse. Now, this is gonna go over a lot of them things I mentioned here. I mean, right up. So we're gonna slowly work our way through like the next 2-3 pages and maybe the first 7 points he makes here, right? About different ideas, how Hegel's philosophy relates to Hermeticism, right? Then we'll move to Marx, one of his most Hegelian texts, right? And we'll sort of go through some of that, right? But yeah, check this out. It says every individual is a blind link in the chain of absolute necessity along which the world develops. Right, so this is Hegel, right? So I carefully explain how this relates to what we're talking about. The whole idea of the blind chain of necessity, right? The rule of contingency, right? And the laws of causality and all that type of stuff, right? Both from Newton and Aristotle, right? Okay, Aristotle had 4 types of causes, right? So he talked about causality, right? And so did Newton, right? And they came to the idea that because of the laws of contingency, the universe had to be eternal, right? This is one of the ideas that they came up with. Now, we understand that the Hermeticists actually agree fundamentally with this premise, right? The prima materia, as it's called, right? Okay, or prime matter that was used to create the world, right? So there's this notion that they have, right? That matter, or not matter per se, right? But
It's
some sort of
kind of quizzical, like paradoxical. Because like if you're creating the world, not just the Earth, the whole world, the whole universe, then you already have a world that you're in that you're creating from. So was that made of?
Right. Well, that's where you get the ideas of natural law, because what are these laws doing before nature comes into existence, right? So God is maybe bound by these laws, sort of emerges through contemplation and reason, sort of thinking about thinking to then order matter, right, which exists alongside of him. But before that, he must himself be bound by these laws, right? And that's why Ghazali said, he said that to believe in natural law cuts off God's hands from creation, right? He said, so he sort of said that you either have God and he's all powerful, or you have natural law, right? I mean, and for the people like Democritus, where there's atoms in the void, right? Aristotle says they refuse to give the notion of the beginning of the universe, right? He says they just say, well, it's just, where the what are the natural laws doing before the universe came into existence, and if it didn't come from into existence, right? Then it must have always been there, right? So he said, they failed to describe origin. They just said, well, ultimately they, the scientists or the natural philosophers just went with Aristotle, right? They said, well, look at the laws of contingency. I guess the universe was always there, right? This is what Einstein famously thought, right? Before he proved the theory of relativity, right? Supposedly, right? He felt that, well, the universe must be eternal, right? This is what Thomas Kuhn talks about in The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, right? He said for a long time people believed in Aristotle, right? Then they believed in, Newton, right? And then they believed in Einstein, right? So he's saying each time the paradigm changes, right? From the universe being eternal to the universe being based on these mechanical laws and processes, right? And also having a beginning, right? To then the notion of relativity and, that sort of goes back to the Big Bang and sort of proves this notion that, so the science has claimed that because of the Big Bang, there's got to be, but that points back to Aristotle again, right? Because there was matter existing, right? Then God formed it, right? So yeah. So let's go with Buddha here. Blessings.
So yeah, basically, and Taoist cosmology, Frank Monday might know this, but you have the Wuji, which is the supreme, like ultimate, which is like infinite, and then you have like the yin yang kind of stuff, and then you have the 5 elements. But you see, the reason that didn't lead to the differentiation, though. You see what I mean? But I think what you're saying is instead of the Wuji, you probably have natural law that would be substituted for that, and
Right.
yeah. And some of the Enlightenment thinkers would say reason is what caused the differentiation of the yin and yang or something. Yeah, the Enlightenment thinkers like that we were talking about. But I think that for the Taoists, it's more spontaneous or more creative. I think so. From what I read, it was more of a creative.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Ghazali says. He says, because the philosophers said that if God decided this moment rather than this other moment to create the world, then that implies a change in God's eternal will, right? To which Ghazali responded, right? And it's just such a hilarious response. It's almost stupefying, right? Because he goes, imagine if I held out 2 equally succulent dates and you just chose one. That's what he said. And he said your choice would not be arbitrary. So he's like, between 2 equal moments in time, there's no arbitration, right? Right. There's only God's will to decide which moment to create, right? So he said God created through complete spontaneity, right? Which is wild. And that actually goes with something that it says, I think, in the Bible. It says, "Why does God send rain to the desert where nothing grows?" Right? Right. So it's just like God's just doing things because he wants to. Like, it's none of your business.
The thing is, though, there is one issue with that, though. I'll just raise it, is that the reason of man seems to reify God's creation in a kind of way that seems to run counter to the spontaneity of God and the creativity, because the reification of man is really the problem. The hypostatization. I mean, what like the reification, hypostatization, it kind of hardens and stiffens things, and then they might mechanically dissect it. But the Taoist cosmology and Al-Ghazali, they don't see the universe as beginning in that way, in an equivalent manner. They don't see it like that. So yeah, so it is weird though, like how reification fits into that, like the human capacity for reification and reason. And so how does that fit into that?
Yeah, this may fit into like Scribina's panpsychism, because it sort of seemed like his view, is based on Empedocles and Heraclitus. It's more akin to this sort of structure here, right? They also incorporate the 5 elements. They have this idea of love and strife that are balanced like the yin yang, right? But it's sort of more. They also
would that imply duality?
Duality, but only on a level of like sort of synergistic relationship, right? And then also things are merged within one ether, right? Empedocles sort of has this notion of the ether, right? It's spelled aether, Aither, right? It's a Greek word, right? So
the period Izun.
Yeah, it's like air, right? Or
it's like a living fire.
Yeah, also the idea of the ethereal, right, comes from that. But yeah, this idea of the blind link in the chain of necessity, right? But yeah, you want to go on with this, Buddha? Or you got anything else with this?
Let me see. Yeah. I don't think I have anything else. Yeah, I'm pretty sure some other people can look into it more. I'm pretty sure there's some stuff I could say more, but I don't know right now though. Yeah. Yeah. But there's like a sense of from the boundlessness we move on to a highly constricted bounded world, because that technique accelerates and accretes and people become more preoccupied with it. In a sense, it kind of, narrows one's view. It kind of constricts and feels suffocating because you get a sense, you lose the mystery and enchantment of things, the awe in things. You see what I mean? As the technique grows. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. Yeah, I think that's like, and I like to look at the idea of, chapter 42, right? Because I think it's pivotal, right? It says 1 gave birth to 2, 2 gave birth to 3, and 3 gave birth to 10,000 things. Right now, that formula, right, is rather interesting because the 1, right, it creates 2, right, which creates 3, right? So 2 is not really doing anything, right? You know what I mean? So I like to point out that 2 doesn't do anything but give birth to 3, right? 3 is what gives birth to, what the 10,000 things are, or the multiplicity around us, right? So there you have the one and the many, right? But you have this sort of mediation, right? It's reminiscent of the notion, just an idea about it seemed like it's the eternal word, right? Like, what is 2 doing, right? 2 is sort of a vessel, or it's the ether, or it's something. Something's going on with 2. That's pretty interesting, right? Because 1, obviously, you don't have to understand why it creates, right? It creates so there could be existence, right? But also it says begot, right? Now, I don't know if that's just a translation, but I had to look at different versions of 42 for sure, and the intro to 42. I think we should compare definitely text of 42, and that formula is interesting. 1 gave birth to 2, 2 gave birth to 3, and 3 gave birth to 10,000 things.
Let me see. I can check it out now. Yeah, let me read the Red Pine translation. Did you?
Yeah. You said that one was useful. Let's check it out.
Yeah, again. Yeah, and then I can read a few commentaries if you want me to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. The Tao gives birth to 1, 1 gives birth to 2, 2 gives birth to 3, 3 gives birth to 10,000 things.
Right. So exactly as I said, right?
Yeah, 10,000 things with yin at their backs, yang in their embrace, and breath between for harmony. What the world hates, to be orphaned, widowed, or destitute, kings use for their titles. Thus, some gain by losing, others lose by gaining. What others teach, I teach too. Tyrants never choose their death. This becomes my teacher. So, I can, there's a lot of commentary, but I'm just going to read maybe the first one. This Ho Sheng Kong says the Tao gives birth to the beginning. 1 gives birth to yin and yang. Yin and yang give birth to the breath between them, the mixture of clear and turbid. These three breaths divide themselves into heaven, earth, and humankind, and together give birth to the 10,000 things. These elemental breaths are what keep the 10,000 things relaxed and balanced. The organs in our chest, the marrow in our bones, the hollow space inside plants all allow these breaths passage and make long life possible. Yeah, some more commentaries, but I don't want to take up this whole thing.
Maybe I just don't know enough about this particular ideology, but it seems like for me, it kind of begs the question: why does the monad or the 1 need to give birth to the 2 and the 2 give birth to the 3 if the 1 is omnipotent? Or is it not?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, some of the doubts
they don't really.
Yeah, primordial chaos, right?
So there could just be,
So not omnipotent. Okay, well, that would make more sense.
yeah, I don't think they go there, but I think later ideas sort of, go there, right?
Okay, don't let me sidetrack then.
Yeah, but I think some of the Hundun stuff came later too. So it's like extrapolation. They have like 7 sages, and they have like all these crazy stories. I don't know if some of them came from Liet Zhu. Liet Zhu is a massive work that I was like looking. It's actually huge, right? So I'm gonna be looking at that soon. So we may look at some parts of that after the Shang Zhu, right? Because I'm interested in looking at that. So yeah. So let me move back to Hegel here. It says if nobody's got anything else. And of course, feel free to
not
come
at
up.
the moment.
Yeah, feel free to come up, anybody, if you got anything going on here. And yeah, blessings to all the people. We're gonna be going for a little bit more, right?
One more thing, but Hegel would probably see there as being a logical relation between yin and yang, and through their like oppositional game, it leads to
Right.
spiritual progress, right? Like,
He knew about Taoism. He wrote about Taoism. He wrote about Taoism and Confucianism, right? And Buddhism, right? So these were things. Yeah, these were things he was aware of in his lectures in history, right? So yeah, he did cover these subjects. If you look up, I think it's like on Marxist.org or whatever. Like they have different writings of Hegel. So yeah, if you look into it, yeah, he covers quite a bit of Eastern philosophy, right? So obviously he didn't have the historical resources that we have in our time, right? To perform that analysis, right? And also his mind is littered with occultism and Kabbalism and Hermeticism and all this
Hermeticism
stuff.
for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So
principle of polarity and such
Oh
things.
yeah. He explains it here. This a fragment preserved by Rosenkranz, one of his biographers, is actually really telling. He says, every individual can raise himself to domination over the great length of this chain only if he realizes the goal of this great necessity, and by virtue of this knowledge learns to speak the magic words which evoke its shape. The knowledge of how to simultaneously absorb and elevate oneself beyond the total energy of suffering and antithesis that has dominated the world in all forms of development for thousands of years. Now, that is a notable quote, right? Because not only are you elevating above nature, you're elevating above the spirit of antithesis, right? That is sort of taken over the world. So you got to force progress to emerge through this antithesis, right? So you could elevate yourself beyond, and nature is causing this, right? So it's very interesting, right? So
that's pretty much directly taken out of the era of Hermeticism.
Right.
It's basically saying it's the law of neutralization, where you can sidetrack certain principles for higher level principles, where, as in polarity and what's the other one, ebb and flow, that one, if goes to the pendulum swings one way, and if you want to escape the extreme pendulum swing the other way, you elevate yourself to a higher set of laws. That's basically what he's getting at, it seems like.
Yeah. And it ties to another principle that man is a microcosm of the macrocosm, and also that he can become akin to God by elevating. Yeah. So correspondence theory is backdoored way to go beyond nature, blah blah blah, right? So Hermeticists do not rest content with the idea of an unknowable God. Instead, they seek to penetrate the divine mystery, right? And Hegel says this knowledge can only be attained by philosophy. Right now, there's thinkers, right? Lull, Bruno, Paracelsus, Bohm, Oettinger, Oettinger, and many others in the Hermetic tradition. He says another parallel between Hermeticism and Hegel is the doctrine of internal relations. Internal relations. Right? For the Hermeticists, the cosmos, right? Remember that word coined by Pythagoras, right? The cosmos is not a loosely connected, or to use the Hegelian language, externally related set of particulars. Okay, now obviously the cosmos, right, to reflect on the term itself, right? yeah, the Pythagoreans did not think it was matter of fact, right? No, they saw sort of like an architect, right, behind the whole thing. All right, you know, sort of extrapolation of like Plato, right? Plato sort of saw this, right? Plato believed that there was one God, right? But he called it the demiurge.
Oof.
Right. You know, he invented the concept. But in Plato, the demiurge is good. In Gnosticism, it's bad, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, because it limits people by limiting them to natural law. It's like a prison, right? So a lot of the occultists, they believe in this concept of natural law. It's all about either transcending it or, you know, obviously the Kabbalists believe in natural law and such notions, right? Through which God created the world, right? They believe their alphabet and numbers and stuff is like part of creation and all this stuff, right? So, he said, so everything in the cosmos is internally related, bound up with everything else, right? So this type of monism, right? Even though the cosmos may be hierarchically arranged, there are forces that cut across and unify all levels. Divine powers understood variously as energy or light. Okay, so energy is a word that comes from Aristotle, right? Okay, but it's also a word that has sort of Newtonian implications, right? Now, light is interesting, and you could compare energy and light to this notion of mind or spirit, right? Which is sort of the ordering principle.
Okay.
Yeah, which is sort of the ordering principle, right?
Universal mind.
Oh yeah, they definitely believe in universal mind, and so did Plotinus, right? And so did Jung, the Gnostic, right?
Right.
So where do where do the archetypes exist? Right, they got to exist somewhere, right? They exist in the universal mind, right? You know, which is this Kabbalistic notion, right? It's the mind of God, right? Remember, Maimonides said God was immaterial, right? So he says this principle is most clearly expressed in the so-called Emerald Tablet. Emerald Tablet.
King Stephen, bow down to Dolphin Jesus.
What the hell? That's
King
wild,
Stephen,
bro.
bow down to Dolphin Jesus.
I'm not. What's that to do with Emerald Tablet, though?
Just want to make sure everybody was still with us.
Satchambum.
That's yeah. So Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, which begins with the famous lines "As above, so below." Actually, we're thankful to have more people with us at this point in the stream than before. Right. Emerald Tablet, which brings the famous lines "As above, so below." This maxim became a central tenet of the Western occultism, for it laid the basis for the doctrine of unity of the cosmos through sympathies and correspondences between its various levels. The most important implication of this doctrine is the idea that man is the microcosm in which the whole of the macrocosm is reflected. Self-knowledge, therefore, leads necessarily to knowledge of the whole. Okay, now that's very important, right? So Hegel basically said the same thing, right? It's all about self-knowledge, right? And that is one of the main notions that Plato uses, right, in the Apology, right? Right. What does the Oracle of Delphi tell Socrates is the greatest knowledge of all? It's his knowledge of self. Right. And then Socrates extrapolates on this and says it's the knowledge of my own ignorance that I have, that I possess, that the Athenians do not possess. Therefore, I am superior. I know what I do not know. Yeah, it's more like he embraced me, Dr. D. You know, he ran with his tail between his legs after the powdered dumpster. All right, dissed him. All right, so dissed and dismissed him. All right. So there's a lowdown on that, Mr. Lowdown.
Man, that's more shit than I can shake a stick at.
Yeah,
These
I know.
with these clowns.
It's fucking shit stick.
Shit stick, yep.
It's fucking shit stick. It's fucking shit stick.
King Stephen, bow down to Dolphin Jesus.
Oh, brother.
Get to know that man because he looks a lot like me, and he may stick around on the show for the near future. Yeah, blessings. But yeah, so yeah, you gotta love when the peanut gallery starts roasting each other, and and the roasted peanuts and for everyone. But yeah, so check this out. As above, so below. This maxim became the central tenet of Western occultism, for it laid the basis for a doctrine of unity of the cosmos through sympathies and correspondences. Now, notice this word correspondences in the word correspondence theory. Something suspicious. Okay, now here's the Hermetica. To summarize the doctrines of Hermetica that became enduring features of the Hermetic tradition. Now, I do have this text. I don't have time to sit here and read Hegel and the Hermetic tradition to you guys all day, but I did explain the intro pretty extensively. Right? It says, okay, so here, God requires creation in order to be God, one. Okay, remember, God created the world in order to know himself, right? God is in some sense completed or has a need to be fulfilled through man's contemplation of him. Okay, so
that
God
seems to go in the complete opposite of Hermeticism, though.
No, that is a Hermeticism. What do you mean?
With the all needs to has any lack.
Yeah, because it needs to create in order to know itself, right? So it's like if God created the world in order to know himself, then it's not omnipotent, right? It just has the potentiality for knowledge, not all of knowledge, right?
I might have to get into that Hermetica that Hyperborean was talking about for that, maybe.
Yeah, did he recommend some text of it?
Yeah, I think it was in DC, VC on Discord, where we're talking a couple days ago, and he was saying, or was it on the stream? I forget. It's like blurry now. Wait, he was saying Kybalion is kind of watered down, or it's got the guy's author's opinions written into it. So he suggests reading this Hermetica by a different author for like a better like understanding of Hermeticism.
Yeah, but is this Aristotelian straitjacket, right? Because God requires creation, right? So God molds creation through the void, right? So these laws already exist. So God is sort of trapped up through reason, which already exists in the world, to create the reason that exists. Right? So it's like,
right, yeah, it's a bit of a twister on that.
Right? It's like, hold up now. You got you might have a limited deity on your hands, a lesser God.
Ooh, baby.
Illumination involves capturing the whole of reality. In a complete encyclopedic speech. Okay, so this complete speech, or teleos logos, right? Right, man can perfect himself through gnosis. He can become empowered through possession of the complete speech. Man can know the aspects and moments of God, right? Right? An initial, okay, so that's in contradiction to the Kabbalah, right? Because in the Kabbalah, you can't know God, right? Ein Sof, right? Okay,
right.
Yeah. In Gnosticism, you can know God. right? But you got to figure out who the fake one is first, right? And all this type of stuff, right? So it says here, an initial stage of purification in which the initiate is purged of false intellectual standpoints is required before the reception of the true doctrine. So there's some sort of initiation, but we don't know what that looked like now, right? 7, especially Paracelsus and Bohm and these guys, they don't recover anything like that, right? They're just simply looking at it in terms of science, right? Or natural philosophy, right? Okay, 7, he says, the universe is an internally related whole pervaded by cosmic energies. Cosmic energies. Cosmic energies. All right. Let's move to Marx, if we can. And I appreciate you guys. We're kind of coming back from a sort of short break. We did a sort of open panel on Wednesday, sort of free for all. And it turned out pretty good. I wanted to have like one-on-ones, and we got 2 good ones in there, you know. Okay, so I can't scroll down here for some reason. What the fuck is this?
I'm sort of tempted to bring up the Kabbalion, but I forget which page the relevant passage is on.
Yeah, shift. Blessings. I appreciate you. All right, let's go to Marx then. We're looking at the essence of competition. Right, and he says both sides of a relationship are raised to a supposed universality, labor as the condition in which everyone is put, capital as the recognized universality and power of the community. And here he talks about the species being of man, because his archetypal man is based on the species being. He says immediate natural species relationship of human being to human being is the relationship of man to woman. In this natural species relationship, man's relationship to nature is immediately his relationship to man, as his relationship of man is immediately his relationship to nature, to his own natural condition. In this relationship, the extent to which the human essence has become nature for man, or nature has become the human essence of man, is sensuously manifested. Reduced to a perceptible fact, from this relationship, one can thus judge the entire level of mankind's development. From the character of his relationship follows the extent of which man has become comprehended himself as a generic being, as man. So he's talking about the conceptualization of man as an idea within nature, and his relationship to nature as being a relationship to man and woman. In a previous passage, right, he states this. Right, he says, as women go from marriage into universal prostitution, so the whole world of wealth, that is the objective essence of man, passes from relationship of exclusive marriage with the private owner into a relationship of universal prostitution with the community. So he establishes this notion of universal prostitution. And the notion of marriage right now he's going to get more complex. He says the human essence has become natural essence for him, the extent to which this human nature has become nature to him. In this relationship is apparent the extent of which man's need has become human. Thus, the extent to which the other human being, as human being, has become a need for him, the extent to which he is the most individual existence, is at the same time a social being. And he says the first positive overcoming of private property or crude communism is thus only an apparent form of vileness of private property trying to set itself up as positive community. Okay, so he's saying that basically basically the idea of crude communism is apparent in the vileness of private property itself to set itself up as a positive community, to reiterate the point, right? So he's saying that basically the notion of private property is necessary to get to the idea of communism, right? That it itself constitutes a sort of crude communism, right? So he integrates Locke's theories of property and, wealth and labor, as I was suggesting earlier, right? So he says communism, A, still of political nature, democratic or despotic, with the overcoming of the state, but still incomplete and influenced by private property. That is by the alienation of man. In both forms, communism already knows itself as the reintegration and return of man to himself. Think about that in terms of what we read about Hegel, the return of man to himself. And the notion of the universal man, right? The return of man to himself. Right? I suspect this is a very Hegelian notion, right? As overcoming of human self-alienation. Broadly speaking, right? That is Hegel and Feuerbach, right? But since it has not yet understood the positive essence of private property, and just as little the human nature of needs, it still remains captive to and infected by private property. It has indeed grasped its concept, but still not its essence. Okay, now he has got one more paragraph here that's going to be pretty interesting. He says, communism as positive overcoming of private property as human self-alienation, and thus as the actual appropriation of the human essence through and for man, therefore as the complete and conscious restoration of man to himself within the total wealth of previous development, the restoration of man as a social, that is a human being. The communism as completed naturalism is humanism. What a statement. The communism as completed naturalism is humanism. What a fucking statement.
Sheesh.
So there you have the notion of the species being man. You have the notion of this neo-primitivism, of man only being able to express himself in his base needs and desires. Right? You have the notion of a crude communism. Right? Which he says, it's a return of man to himself as an overcoming of human alienation, since it has not yet understood the positive science of private property and just a little human nature of needs, it still remains captive and infected by private property. But then that moves to the restoration of man as a social being. And he says this completed humanism and the completed naturalism, right? It says it is genuine resolution of the antagonism between man and nature, between man and man. And he furthermore states it is a resolution of the conflict between the existence and essence, objectification and self-affirmation, freedom and necessity, individual and species. So he's talking about these dialectics, right? Existence and essence, objectification and self-affirmation, freedom and necessity. Right? Necessity comes from natural law, freedom comes from the human will, right? Individual and species, right? Right. So his collective notion of man is in this notion of the species being. Right. Extrapolates it from the notion of the species being. Right. And he's writing it around the same time Darwin is, right? Holy smokes, it's almost 2 hours in here.
Yeah. I found this. I want to read 2 more commentaries for 42 if possible, just as small. So
Yeah.
I got found my one highlight.
Yeah, just give me 1 second here. It says
sorry.
here, just 1 second here. It says here, it's and this is the last thing I'll read. It says the entire movement of history is therefore both its actual genesis, the birth of its empirical existence. Now here he's talking about time, right? It says also for its thinking awareness, the conceived and conscious movement of its becoming. Whereas the other, yet underdeveloped communism seeks in certain historical forms opposed to private property a historical proof, a proof in what explicitly exists. It thereby tears particular moments out of the movement and marks them as proofs of its historical pedigree. Okay, more on this later, right? So there's a relationship man has with nature and time, right? The notion of progress. Anyways, we'll reflect on this more as we take a look at the historical information on Marx and Hegel, right? But first from Buddha. Blessings, Buddha.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is actually tied to what you were saying, kind of too. Some more, just 2 more commentaries. They're not long for verse 42 of the Tao Te Ching. Liu He-ching says, dark and unfathomable is yin, bright and perceptible is yang. As soon as we are born, we all turn our back on the dark and unfathomable yin and turn toward the bright and perceptible yang. Fortunately, we keep ourselves in harmony with the breath between them. And this is one more. The Yuchi Qian says, when breath is pure, it becomes heaven. When it becomes turgid, it becomes earth. And the mixture of the breath between them becomes humankind. That's it. Yeah, I had those highlights. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, blessings. Yeah, I'm having problems scrolling down here. So give me a second and let me refresh my page. This is crazy.
Yeah, keep that there for future. Yeah, I found the book. Found my highlighted version. That's my reading copy for like. Now the other copy was for my friend to read. Yeah, there's a lot of thinkers and stuff to keep up with. It does make one overwhelmed.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what was that? I missed the last part of it.
There's a lot of different thinkers to keep up with. It makes one overwhelmed.
Oh yes, my friend. But this is what we got to do, right? To compete on a professional level, right? This is the thing, is like you got to know the enemy, right? So it's crazy, right? We're actually moved past the need for multidisciplinary research and doing that on an independent basis, right? So actually there should be a large part of the population participating in that in order to offset the and it is happening, right? There's people who are diverting attention from the manufactured sort of discourse and narratives that they're trying to push on people, right? And they're
sort of working their little, their own little angle here. So this is important for us to see. But yeah, we'll move to some historical info here. Right. Let me maybe put on some music for you guys. Just for 5 minutes, and then we'll move to that. Yeah, I got like a little thing I want to play for you guys. Do a little good one here. Blessings. Yeah. So Hegel and Marx, we're continuing on with that. The thing is that we took a little hiatus for one stream, right? So I could open the panel and have conversations.
And
yeah,
I know this will sound crazy for me to say, but I've been thinking a lot, and let's say evolution was false, and then involution was true. That's the strongest argument, in my opinion. If involution is true, you know what I mean? If involution is true, then that's the strongest argument against transhumanists and
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
One thing, Guanon, he did say many similar things as Elo, like way before him. You know what I mean? Like he did say some similar things as Elo. Guanon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The reign of quantity, the myth of progress. These are all things that come from Guanon, right?
Yeah, and Evola at the end of the revolt against the modern world, the last 100 pages or 80 pages, he's like saying stuff that's so similar to Evola also.
Right.
Like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Evola, revolt against the modern world. Excellent.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah. Being and becoming.
When I think about, because you always hear the transhumanists saying with Yuval Harari, it's the next stage of human evolution. That's what they say. But it's more like an involution. It's like more of a degeneration. You know what I mean? Like, and like chaining you down, and it's more like imprisoning you more and stuff, and barricading you. Yeah.
Right now, I'm not gonna go on for too long, right? So we're gonna listen to this music, and then I'm gonna play the thing, with Hegel and Marx, and I'm gonna end this because we've already gone over 2 hours, and I should get some sleep here tonight. Prepare for the show. Tomorrow we're having a full show, right? So we're going over tons of topics tomorrow. Obviously, we're starting with the Pythagoreans, right? We gave a 3-hour presentation on Pythagoras on Wednesday, right? It was excellent stuff. Honestly, I covered a huge swath of ground, right? With that thing on Wednesday, right? So that one is more heavy than the thing on Saturday, even though the thing on Saturday got so many views. There's over 600 views on that. We usually don't get that many, right? So it's pretty interesting turnout there, for just a regular stream where not much was going on, right? So I wonder what's going on there. Blessings to all the people. But yeah, we'll be back soon.
As there can be an emanation downward in the vibratory scale from the cosmos, so man can project the self, the realization of his own being, upward in the scale to become conscious of the cosmic. This is what is known as the elevation of consciousness.
And I'm the bring of eternal energy lasting. Well, I think I'm ready, you're burning the ever after. Moving in the ship across the waters of our destiny. As legendary speech we took and made it all up chapter. Me and I'm the bring of eternal energy lasting. Well, I think I'm ready, you're burning the ever after. Moving the ship across the waters of our destiny. It's legendary speech. We took and made it all a
The simple thing is the most difficult to achieve in a maze of life that we travel upon. Sometimes it feel like a pawn in a check of the city, gripping your cranium, squeeze your life out slow. Holding out to slay the dragon's soul. And lo and behold, we found a fold in a page that read life's code. And you gotta be bold as the rock to hold together the flock. Perfectly ready for battle, able to tackle the grapple that lay ahead in the trench. Did I mention attention? We take a ton of the time. Make a run of a rhyme on the drop of a dime. Make a fun of a pie. Bitch, choose them on the mind. With nothing to find. All she gets in front and behind. We took them one at a time. Like a day in my lifespan. Make it all accountable on me, cause I'm a new man. Hear that in a lot of poetry from me, understand. Looking from a new angle to try harder, not rectangle. The foundation, I mangle the sound place with a name that supports the sports I play. Hoping it could always make sense of healthy ways, needed the wealthy ways. When I'm on the brink of eternal energy lasting, well I think I'm ready, I'm burning the ever after. Moving in the ship across the waters of my destiny. It's legendary speech, we took it, made it all a trip. Drinking up a sip, nah, never catch a lockjaw. Alcoholic cookie, see it dripping off the lips, y'all. Looking at me funny on the stage, I'm rocking mics for people listening to produce. Taking neck, I pop the noose and make your body fully loose. Cause I produce, I mass produce and mass the truth. Listen to everlasting proof, the last recruit. Looking at me like that's the fool who master tools. Up I pass down the cruising cars with shoes. Hard to fool, not hard to do. Just a man marvelous, harvesty, maybe martyrs. Get my missing anaconda inside. It's made us a mind. It's choking your internal voice until you can't hear yourself any longer. Making the right choices in life makes you stronger. Can't keep stagnant, man, any longer. Making the right choices in life makes you stronger. Being on the brink of eternal energy lasting. Till I think I'm ready, I'm burning the ever after. Moving in the ship across the waters of our destiny. It's legendary speech, we took and made it all a pastor. Being on the brink of eternal energy lasting. Till I think I'm ready, I'm burning the ever after. Moving in the ship across the waters of our destiny. It's legendary speech, we took and made it all a pastor.
My energy, everlasting, you looking at a winner, see? Absorb it now. I breed growth while they coming with that morbid style. Thrill seekers on the prowl, never getting weaker, I'ma leak it to the child. Feed the animal inside the ground, I'm on a mountain base, soaking up sun. I'm a place till the job is all done. I'm a ball young cause I got a raw tongue. Got them all sprung cause of how I'm not dumb. And that's something that I'm proud of, Nothing comes something, believe it's only one thing you can do umpting exercises, bless the wisest. Let's devise a scheme to stay alive. It's mean on the streets, killing dreams on the beat. With only beans on the plate, I'ma lean on my mate to make do. And no, it's not fake when I break through.
Being like a shark in the underground for the masses. Could it be I'm learning myself while I'm teaching classes? Using what I got to get where no one's ever been. I bet that when I reach the end there will be no more greener grasses. Being like a shark in the underground for the masses. Could it be I'm learning myself while I'm teaching classes? Using what I got to get where no one's ever been. I bet that when I reach the end there will be no more greener grasses.
All right, let me turn that down a little bit, but we'll proceed with the thing here. Let me share the screen. We'll go to Hegel. I appreciate you guys.
Line, Hegel also elaborates his system. This can be viewed as a series of pyramidal structures culminating in a supertriad whose thesis is the absolute idea, which generates its antithesis, nature, and whose synthesis is spirit, or absolute reality. The entire system can be viewed as spirit, which is also absolute reality, contemplating itself and its own significance. As individuals, we gradually move up through this system as we become more rational, more mind, more conscious of ourselves and our significance. This system is a vast spiritual monism, the all-embracing synthesis of the absolute idea and nature, spirit, or absolute reality. But besides being triadic, it can also be viewed as cyclical, for differentiation is a necessary part of this whole. The dialectical method operates throughout, thesis generating antithesis, and so on. Truth can only be known after it has differentiated itself.
So there's another dichotomy, or paradox within Hegel, right? Is the notion of both progress and the cyclical nature of the dialectical progression, right? Not only does the same pattern repeat, but it gets more estranged as the pattern complexifies, right?
Generated its antithesis, error, and overcome this. Likewise, God is only infinite because he has taken on the limitation of the finite and overcome this. A similar dialectical process is echoed in the fall of man, which was necessary so that he could achieve goodness. As well as the integration of synthesis, there is always the differentiation of thesis generating antithesis. In 1818, Hegel decided to embrace the antithesis of his decision to accept the post at Heidelberg. He now accepted the offer of a post at Berlin. Here he became professor of philosophy, the position that had become vacant on the death of Fichte. By now, Napoleon had been defeated and Prussia was once again the dominant German state. It was embarking upon its most stiflingly conservative era, and Berlin was its capital. Hegel was to remain in Berlin for the next 13 years. His lectures became an institution, attracting hundreds of students, and the miasma of his philosophical influence began to spread throughout German universities in the form of Hegelianism. Virtually all freedom of thought and political expression were forbidden in Prussia at the time. This meant that the intellectual energies of the students and sophisticated citizens of Berlin had to seek release elsewhere. The result was a great boom in the arts, philosophy, and music among the chattering classes. Hegel became practically the official philosopher of the Prussian state. In 1821, he published The Philosophy of Right, which deals with politics and rights in society. Hegel was by now all in favor of the status quo and abhorred any thought of radical social change. The basic dialectic.
So this is where Hegel cucks to the state, right? And he becomes such an avid proponent of statism, right? That he single-handedly gives birth to the Marxist philosophy, right? Which is all about the centralizing industry, right? So yeah. And obviously this notion of the apotheosis of the state, right? Now, Stuthern is really going to hate this idea, right? So I think it's funny how he goes into it, right? But yeah.
Of his new work was Thesis, Abstract Universal Laws, Antithesis, Personal Conscience, Synthesis, The Ethics of a Society. Hegel believed universal laws, and of his new work was Thesis, Abstract Universal Laws, Antithesis, Personal Conscience, Synthesis, The Ethics of a Society.
So there is the little, that's closer to the Hegelian dialectic that people describe on the political level, right? It's universal laws, right, that are mediated by the needs of a society, right? So yeah, it's interesting, right? But yeah.
Hegel believed that this society should rest on the values of the family.
So remember that notion of universal law, right? I just talked for 2 hours about that, right? So, right. So it shouldn't be, me and Buddha and Red here. So yeah, blessings.
And the established professions. Yet, surprisingly, the state he envisaged is closer to the British model of the period than the Prussian. It included parliamentary...
That's from Kant, right? Kant's philosophy, right? And this was a sort of complaint by Nietzsche, right? He said Kant's philosophy is too British, right? Not only does Kant agree with the British system of government, but he agrees with empiricism, which is like, like he saw it as sort of British, a product of a British philosophy, right? Which he saw as sort of anemic, unimaginative, right? So yeah.
Government, a monarchy with limited powers, trial by jury, and toleration of dissent, especially of religious dissenters and Jews. As far as I can discover, Hegel was entirely free of anti-Semitism, which was considered quite socially acceptable and reached epidemic proportions in Prussian society during this period. Meanwhile, Hegel continued doing what he knew best, bamboozling lecture halls filled with scores of earnest students.
Bamboozle.
Laid out beside him on the lectern, and his large, lank-haired head bowed, he would shuffle awkwardly through his folios of notes, turning the pages forward and back as he hesitantly delivered sausage-like strings of abstruse qualifying clauses, his words frequently interrupted by bouts of coughing, until at last, rising to a abstraction, he would occasionally achieve an apotheosis of unexpected eloquence, which momentarily lifted his speech above the constantly conflicting theses and antitheses of jargon to a sublime pinnacle transcending all meaning, where it would expand, as if of its own accord, before bursting into yet another fit of coughing. Sometimes a particularly bamboozled student would afterward follow him to his rooms. Here he would find an odd, pasty-faced figure seated at a huge desk in a yellow-grey dressing gown which reached to the floor, fumbling through scattered piles of discarded papers and books. In the midst of his awkward discourse with his visitor, the philosopher would often drift off, mumbling and fumbling for minutes on end, to all intents and purposes entirely oblivious of the other's presence. Hegel published little during this period, but a number of dedicated cryptographers took notes at his lectures, and these have been published among his collected works. These published notes contain Hegel's most detailed exposition of his ideas on aesthetics, the philosophy of religion, and his notorious philosophy of history. This attempts to reduce history to a dialectic process, a pseudo-idea which was to return with a vengeance in the works of his follower, Marx.
Right, so let me just say that I suspect that this notion of the dialectical process of history, right, and also Darwinian, notions, right, of progress as well, right, and also the spiritualists. The spiritualists, obviously, they're talking about this sort of spiritual evolution of man, right? So all of these ideas seem to coincide, right? So the dialectical process of history is a basic nub of the notion of progress, right? Right, because he also saw this as a way for man to idealize his own purpose, right? So, okay, let's just hear this for a couple more minutes, and then we'll go to Marx. We gotta end the show soon.
According to this approach, history has a purpose: God's will for Hegel, the achievement of a communist utopia for Marx. Hegel traces the crab-like dialectic advance of history across the sand castles of time. The empires of China, ancient Greece, and Rome finally give way to the glories of the Prussian state, the highest form of community life ever known on earth, far transcending the rights of any mere individual. History shows us that when all but the name of philosophy was lost in other lands, it maintained itself as the peculiar possession of the German nation. We have
So we read that before, right? This is from Reason in History, right? It's only the Germans that realized the freedom, and I think he's talking about Martin Luther.
From nature the high calling to be guardians of this sacred fire. As in earliest times, the world spirit maintained the highest consciousness in the Jewish nation. It wasn't Hegel's idea that the earlier guardians of the sacred fire of highest consciousness...
Oops! He's a Zionist, right? Or whatever, a proto-Zionist. Right,
sheesh.
Yeah, that's bad. Bad news bears.
Should suffer the fate he did at the hands of the Nazis in the 20th century. Hegel would have been appalled by Hitler and the abominations of the Third Reich. But
I think Stutthern is a Jew, right? So just want to point that out. The guy who's narrating this is a Jew, right? Most likely. But yeah.
Such garbage didn't help matters, to say the least. Hegel saw history from the widest possible perspective, a world historical view. History was viewed as a process of self-realization. Humanity was embarked upon a journey of intellectual reflection and self-understanding, a growing awareness of its own unity and purpose.
Okay, let's leave it there. Right. We're like 49 minutes into this. Let's go to Marx now. Blessings. And then we'll end the show. Thank you so much for being here, folks.
And finally replaced the 40 rules with 10. He then maneuvered some Marxian back, for my opinion. From here on, it was Marx's show. On a pretext, Marx's own word, I altered the whole preamble, threw out the Declaration de Principe, and finally replaced the 40 rules with 10. He then maneuvered some Marxists into key positions in the new organization, and by 1867 was writing to Engels of this powerful machinery in our hands, and of his own influence from behind the scenes. The membership of the International was, however, never predominantly Marxist, and conflicting currents were always at work. Engels only hoped that the next International would become communist and openly proclaim our principles. Eventually, the commanding figure of the Russian revolutionary anarchist Mikhail Bakunin rose to challenge Marx for control of the International. Their struggle for control ultimately destroyed the organization. Marx managed to get Bakunin expelled and had the headquarters of the International transferred to the United States, where it would be safe from other European revolutionary challenges, even though he knew that would also mean its demise as well. It was a rule or ruin tactic that would appear again and again in later communist infiltrations of non-communist organizations. Twilight years. In the decade that remained of his life after the destruction of the International, Marx published little. His financial worries were largely behind him, but illnesses plagued him and his wife. The completion of Capital was delayed not only by illness, but also by Marx's side excursions into other subjects, notably the history of Russia, which required him to learn the Russian language. Even Engels did not know that Marx had let the manuscripts of volumes 2 and 3 of Capital sit untouched for years while he dallied with other matters. When Engels discovered this after Marx's death, he said that if I had been aware of this, I would not have let him rest day or night until everything had been finished and printed. Engels had been vainly urging Marx since 1845 to finish the projected book on economics. As it was, much of the last 2 decades of Engels' life were taken up trying to decipher and assemble the manuscripts for the remaining 2 volumes of Capital. Realizing the monumental task that this involved, and his own advancing age, Engels initiated the young Karl Kautsky into the mysteries of Marx's handwriting, enabling Kautsky to eventually assemble the remaining manuscripts into Theories of Surplus Value, a separate 3-volume work, originally intended by Marx as the final volume of
Okay, let me read a little bit of this Das Kapital, right? He starts it off by saying John Stuart Mill says in his Principles of Political Economy, quote, "It is questionable if all the mechanical inventions yet made have lightened the day's toil of any human being," unquote. Says that is, however, by no means the aim of the application of machinery under capitalism. Like every other instrument for increasing the productivity of labor, machinery is intended to cheapen commodities by shortening the part of the working day in which the worker works for himself to lengthen the other part, the part which he gives to the capitalist for nothing. The machine is a means for producing surplus value, right? Produced by the machine, right? So the whole process of industrialization is a central place in his theory, right? And how the machine alters the relationship between
people in work, right?
Capital. Thus, a work begun in the middle of the 19th century was not completely published until the end of the first decade of the 20th century. Marx once observed that all his earnings from capital would not pay for the cigars he smoked while writing it. It took 4 years to sell 1,000 copies, and though translations began to appear with the passing years, Marx remained in his lifetime a little-known figure outside the ranks of revolutionaries. His greatest notoriety came as a defender of the bloody activities of the Paris Commune of 1871. His book on the subject, The Civil War in France, sold far more copies than the Communist Manifesto. Marx relished this public notoriety, though it also included death threats. The Marx family, even after being relieved from dire poverty, had many rocky roads to travel. Marx's wife, a beauty in her youth, found herself with a pockmarked face as a result of illness. In her words, looking more like a kind of rhinoceros which has escaped from a zoo than a member of the Caucasian race. She remained a nervous wreck and irritable with her children as a result of decades of strain, for which her pampered upbringing had not prepared her. While her mother's servant, Helene de Muth, had been a godsend to a young wife unable to take care of children, money, or a household, Lenchen's handling of these responsibilities may also have retarded or prevented Jenny Marx from maturing. Her immaturity was still evident long after she ceased to be young. At age 50, she realized a lifetime ambition by giving a ball, complete with uniformed servants and hired musicians. Even as a middle-aged woman and the wife of a revolutionary, she had visiting cards printed up identifying herself as Baroness von Westphalen. Nor were these the only vanities in which she and Marx indulged. They continued to give their daughters piano lessons, music, and dancing lessons, even when this sometimes meant not paying the rent. Keeping up appearances was a major item in the Marx's budget throughout their lives. During his worst years of financial desperation, Marx strove mightily and with pained embarrassment to prevent visitors from discovering his poverty, though Engels pointed out how futile and pointless this was, even when this required his wife to take everything that was not actually screwed down to the pawn shop to pay for entertaining them. During one of his worst financial crises, Marx contemplated the most extreme reduction of expenditure, which might include requiring him to move into purely proletarian accommodation and get rid of the maids. The 3 Marx daughters all became involved with men unable to support them, 2 through marriage and 1 in a common-law relationship. All received money at one time or other from Engels, the eldest to pay overdue rent, the middle daughter repeatedly for a variety of reasons, and the youngest in a large inheritance which she did not live long to enjoy. Marx's relationships with his children and grandchildren, however, show his most happy and human side. He was a gentle and indulgent father who amused his children with his own original fairy tales and picnicked and played with them with great relish. The deaths of those who perished in childhood severely affected him for years afterwards.
Yeah. All right, so we'll leave it there. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Yeah. Looks like nobody hopped up here. I appreciate you guys. You know, these guys, Avian Buddha and Reddington, they're always up here, right? So yeah, blessings. Do you guys want to say anything to the people? We'll be back tomorrow, obviously, for a much longer stream.
Yeah, it was a good talk. I have a lot more to read, of course, and there's always new connections you can find and see how it all connects and builds up to the disaster, of Hegel and what we're experiencing.
Right.
There are different ways you can analyze and approach things. Yeah.
Yeah, different ways to slice the pie. Also, Pythagoras and Aristotle. I think Kant and Hegel are really significant in the modern age. Kant for his epistemology, and Hegel for his sort of, weird, metaphysics plus his views on the state. I think, which I guess point to a sort of progress, right? I think Aristotle, his view of the telos, right, and Pythagoras, his ideas of natural law. You could see that sort of coloring the script. So it's interesting.
This isn't the quote I was looking for, but this sort of ties into what we're talking about earlier with Hermeticism and Hegel. And in the Kabbalion, it says here, we accept and teach the view of the great Hermetic thinkers of all times, as well as those illumined souls who have reached higher planes of being, both of whom assert that the inner nature of the all is unknowable. This must be so, for naught but the all itself can comprehend its own nature and being. So it's like, why would it need to create the universe if it to know itself, unless there's like a different way of knowing yourself than contemplating your being in nature.
Right. Now, this is going to unify with its own creation somehow. Like, I don't know. Or the creation becomes God. I guess there's another way to do it, right?
Well, Hermeticism would stipulate that creation is mental. It's all mental.
Right.
In the mind of the all.
Right. Well, in the Hermetic Corpus, we read a line earlier. It says, the two are all there is, what comes to be and what creates it. So.
Right. It said the all is in the creation, the creation in all. I'm butchering the saying. Where is it? I'm not gonna find it.
Yeah, but pretty intense, honestly. I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna go see who's on, and maybe, yeah, I did try to promote this show at OTW earlier, but it seemed like not too many people showed up. But yeah, go figure. I'm not really stressed.
Sad trombone.
Yeah, sad trombone. Yeah, but
something about Buzz Lightyear always, bothered me as a kid. Woody, Woody is better. Yeah, Woody is better.
What?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Woody
agree.
is superior to Buzz Lightyear. Woody is a
Yeah.
cowboy, and Woody is closer to the Earth, and he's also strong, and he's honorable and valorous. But Buzz Lightyear, he's a technique, and he's close to the techno-liberalism and Geist. Don't like Buzz Lightyear. If you don't give your kid Buzz Lightyear, just break that Buzz Lightyear, throw it in the trash.
And he's delusional, right? He
That's just falling with style.
yeah, he actually identifies himself with the like archetype. So so this is his problem.
You're a sad, sad little man, and you have my pity.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to bed now. I hope you all have a good night. Thank you.
Yeah,
He-
blessings, Avian. Yeah, have a peaceful night. Yep. Alrighty then. Appreciate you guys. Let's move to some music here's essential.
Yeah, send me this tune in the background.
Yeah, this is
Some like chill, like sort of. I'm not sure what genre that is exactly.
it's Canadian
Instrumental kind of stuff.
Canadian experimental rock, broken social scene, right? I mean,
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah. So we'll
Like kind of like a post rock kind of genre or something.
yeah, it's cool. Canadian rock music. Yeah. But yeah. So we got a lot of songs for you guys. As per usual, right? We just have like a bunch of cool music I made for this week. But yeah, I wanted to tell you guys about the streams we had, right? Maybe I should promote some of this stuff since nobody's watching anything I make. I mean, but yeah.
Neither have I.
Yeah, but it's actually yeah, Red.
I don't have much though.
Yeah,
right
Red.
now.
Oh no. Yeah, I thought you meant you haven't watched this stuff.
Oh no, I meant that people don't watch my stuff either.
Yeah, let's just promote this one. This is the one we recently did, all right? You know, it's called Made by Machine Bob 6. We got pretty good.
It's like I hope I watched it. I was there. You know, like
were you? I think you might have been gone this one. I don't know.
I remember it. It was heckling on
heckling.
Ben and
okay. So you were there,
Wilson and all that nonsense.
Made by Machine Bob. We explore
Flowstein,
cucking to Andrew Wilson. Yeah. So
Cuck Rakers.
Yeah, Cuck Rakers. All right. So so we did an extra special on Friday, right? It was cool, right? We did a special stream on Saturday. Now a lot of people watch the Saturday one, right? A lot of people watch this show. Both of them got like 600 views a piece, right? Which if it gets over 500 views, it's kind of like a popular video, right? If it doesn't get 500 views, it's kind of like not that popular, right? So our videos get like 450 or right. So
341.
Yeah, sometimes 341. Yeah, we clock out at like very pretty low numbers, I guess, comparatively. But there's a lot of people engaging with the content, right? There's a lot of discussions being had. It's inspiring a lot of people to take the discussion in a new direction, right? So we're confident that this will be very, potent, especially after I start clipping up the madness that I've unleashed with these sort of, now we got 400 videos, right? So, so that means that there's 2 hours apiece in a lot of those 400 videos, right? And that means that there's a ridiculous amount of usable content, and right, like, that would mean there's 800 hours of usable content, right? So we have a huge swath of material, and I have it backed up there on the hard drive, right? So so we got a lot to go. Blessings to all the people, and yeah, we'll be back soon. Talk to you guys soon. Yo, Alex, you don't need to send a buck. What's the question? Just let me know what the question is. I'll answer it right now. I got you. No catch up. No, we don't do that stuff. You got a question, I'll answer it right now for free. Or whatever. Let's go. Just shoot me the question. Did you put it earlier in the chat?
He might have. But I didn't catch it if he did.
Was the question just how to send a super chat? We don't do that around here, homie. Actually, we actually don't do that. But yeah. I mean, we have a cash app, but yeah, let me see. Yeah, but I'll answer the question. You don't need to send money for me to answer a question, right? That's just so we give to other people or improve the show. You don't know. So if you guys give money, it just goes to the show or whatever. I mean, so I need equipment, laptop, StreamYards, whatever. So yeah, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. So if the guy comes through with the question, Alex, we'd love to answer your question. I got you on the question, bro.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah. So anyways, so we'll figure it out. Maybe it's on the YouTube chat. I'll check it out.
It looks like he says something here. Is it useful for machines?
Yeah, I'd say no. Yeah, I'd say no. Yeah, this show is I think that eventually they will combine machines with humans, right? So then it'll be a question of it won't be a question of figuring out who serves the machine and who doesn't. Because there will be people that are so integrated with machines that they'll need to rely on the machine for their survival, right? So those people will most likely be subhuman, right? They'll reach a subhuman level, right? Now, in terms of the answer to this, right? We got three theories that we've looked at, right? One is by Uncle Teddy, right? Okay, and he says that you should reject the system and accept the consequences. He says that the consequences of rejecting the system will be pretty bad. They'll be pretty negative, right? He doesn't think that you can go back to some simpler time or live in harmony with nature, right? He thinks nature is just a harsh system. It's no replacement for modern society for the conveniences of the modern world, right? Yet it's better than being enslaved by technology or living in a subhuman state, right? Now, for Ellul, right, he says you should create parallel systems, right, to try to get beyond organization, right, of the machine. He believes you should create a new kind of human, a technological mutant, right, that could live in the technological society but not be affected by the negative aspects of technology, right? So there's a second option in Ellul. The third option is through Skrbina. He says you should create a global reconstruction of our relationship with technology through a gradual recession of use that is controlled, right? So this would be like
a tapering of sorts.
Yeah, sort of like you move to like homesteading and then you move to like a different stage of society, right? And it moves to different ways until you move back to 1200 AD, right?
There before you go, Adrian.
Before the mechanical clock, right? So this idea, so that is a unique level of technological complexity that doesn't allow for grand scale technological advancement, right? The kind that integrates states and countries into a global system, right? Anyways,
it
so there is some of the
depend. It would also depend if the machine / technology would have a use that humans could actually fulfill. and
Yeah.
that would be worth the cost of enslaving us.
Yeah, so the general stance of the show is anti-tech, right? But of course, we know that there's no such thing as an anti-tech human, right? It's just what relationship you want to have with technology. And those are the three relationships that we suggest are adequate, right, to dealing with the problem itself. Now, these three thinkers, we look at their views on their own terms, right? There's also the views of Mumford, right? Mumford, in his documentary on the city, he was sort of thinking of ways to provide a more congenial space or environment in which to function, right? So the works I would suggest right now to you to answer this question, right, is Technics and Man by Lewis Mumford, right? Okay. The Technological Society by Uncle Teddy, right?
Ellul.
Yeah. Technological Society by Ellul. Technological Slavery by Uncle Teddy. Sorry. Technological Slavery by Uncle Teddy. Right? And Metaphysics of Technology by Dr. Skrbina. These are works that we're looking at on the show. So I hope that gives a better answer to your question, right? So Technics and Man, Lewis Mumford, right? And in addition to these, we'll be looking at the Discourses of Inequality by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, another key work, right? So all of these bring into question, right, liberalism, multiculturalism, right, universalism, right, technological complexity, technological innovation, right, global government, global systems, and all this type of stuff, right? So they're naturally against all those. So yeah, so we'll start this video again, but blessings. Thank you for the question. And yeah, if you have any more extrapolations on what I said or any more questions, just shoot them, and we'll deal with them. Blessings.
الورد
Yeah, blessings, sir. How you doing today?
Yeah, as far as I saw, that was a very beautiful scene.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little like outro for my show. We were wrapping it up, but I saw you joined, and I always like talking to you, sir. So I thought I'd kick it with you for a second. But yeah, how you doing today?
Yeah. My apologies for being late.
No, it's all good.
But that scene, it took me back to where I was no longer in control, and this is your this is your scene as we travel, and make of it what you will. When you ignore the sound on the radio, when you ignore the bickering that goes on in the car, and you just look out the window. Hours upon hours of driving.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Meant hours upon hours of looking out the window, and
right. Yeah.
I saw so much, and that's where it took me back to.
Yeah, like I remember like being a kid and sitting in like the back seat and like you're going on a long trip, right? It sort of takes you back to that too. Like you said, like having no control, right? And it's sort of like being driven instead of like, driving, right? Like it's interesting, right? But yeah, that whole idea about remaining in a constant state of departure, right? And also like seeing with new eyes, right? You could see anything with new eyes, right? It depends on how you look at it, right? So you have to like, a lot of times the eye has no conscience. It's what you apply to what you're looking at. As you said, choose your scene, right? And yeah.
Also, so many people tell you when you're a youngster, don't look into the sun. It's blinding. And what happened in that video is exactly what I did as a child. It was like, well, I'm gonna look directly into the sun. Now, it didn't blind this camera, but I definitely looked directly into the sun. I stared at it like, what? Come at me, bro, kind of thing.
Yeah, I liked staring at it and then closing my eyes and then being like, what's like, and then still seeing the dot, that was the sun, and being like, what is that? I just closed my eyes. I'm not supposed to see anything. What is that dot now? And I used to think when I was a kid, I was like, is it stored in my eyeballs? Like the memory of the sun is now showing me while I close my eyes. It's interesting.
You told me not to stare into the sun, along the lines of everything you ever told me not to do. But I've done all those things. So now I can say that I have not lost faith in you. Those of you who told me not to do it. But maybe you told me not to do it because you don't have the strength that I have, because I will recover and I will still be your son. I will still be your brother. I will still be your employee. I will still be your soldier. I will still be your husband. I will still be your father. And guess what? I will still find another day to stare directly into the sun.
Right. Now it said that the whole thing from Captain Ahab, right? He says, I'd blot out the sun if it offended me. Right. Right. That's what the guy says. Right. So the whole idea, and now they actually have the plot of the Matrix. There's a company that's trying to create little particulates to blot out the sun.
All right. So
Sure, Gates is all over that.
yeah.
I've heard of that. That they want to create like energy on Earth by putting solar panels that completely encompass the Earth.
Right.
And I would say that that's a bad idea.
Hugely idea. Really bad.
It's yeah. You said it, brother.
Because one photosynthesis. I have yet to see a replication of that to where it's replaced by technology. Not to mention, nature is nature for a reason. We can. What do they say? We can take genes and we can what do they call it? The only word I can use right now, I guess, in my mind is replicate, is that we can take your genes and we can make another you.
Right.
But you can only impregnate somebody with my genes, and that's all fine and good, but you will never replicate me, because you can't replicate the time frame in which I was born into. You cannot replicate the parents that raised me in the situation that they did. You cannot replicate the governments that were in charge. There is so much that you cannot. You would have to change everything about history in order to replicate me. And the same with you. We cannot replicate you. There is no algorithm. There is no mathematics. There is no DNA that can make you again to be you again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's an interesting movie called Primer that these guys in Ann Arbor made, where these people, like, this is gonna really butcher the plot. It's a really deep film, right? But you have to watch it. It's like a hour and a half long or something. But these guys invent like a cloning machine, and then one of them decides to experiment and use it on itself. There's like these corporations that want to steal this cloning machine, right? So then one of them uses it to create like a person that could do his job. So this person goes to work, and then it goes home and thinks it's him, right? So they have to sort of hide, because there's this other them walking around, so they have to hide the fact that they clone themselves, right? So then they eventually have to kill they have to kill the guy they made in their place, because they figure out it's not like a useful thing to do. All right. But their thing was they were going to use the bank account information to generate money and just create clones of themselves that would just go to work for them. Right. So it's pretty funny.
Have you ever, and this is more of on the comedy side, but have you ever seen that movie Multiplicity?
No, I've not seen that one.
Well, it's Michael Keaton. And apparently they develop a way to, so he wants to be more for his wife and his family. And so it's like, well, if I didn't have to work so much, if I didn't have to do so much of the house, I could be more. I could be more. I could be more. And so they clone this dude, and but each clone winds up being a specific part of his personality. So he's got his feminine side, he's got his masculine side, and he's got
hermeticism for you.
and he's got his like, pardon my French, but he's got his retarded side, and you know, the masculine side wants to get with the lady. That's his wife, but he replicated himself. He cloned himself. So, is it cheating? And then, you know, everything works out in the beginning, but then these are real people that he created. So then he has to deal with them in real life. And in the end, it all turns out good. It's a rom-com, but he winds up sending all three of his replicated personalities after everybody has realized that we all exist together. He sends them on their way. But just imagine, like, you clone yourself, and the best part of you that could please your wife winds up getting with your wife, and it's like, oh, now you, that's a part of you. You have that in you, right?
Yeah,
but
that's like Fight Club too, in a way. Like, it's weird.
But
Split
and
personality.
they made a movie about it. It's like, hey, but this wasn't.
Yeah, that is similar to what I described. It's kind of funny, but yeah.
Because cloning has actually been done, like DNA wise, but it's always been done from birth. Like you don't meet your clone as an exact copy of yourself right here, right now. You meet your clone as far as your DNA is concerned, and it still has to be born, it still has to be raised, still has to be educated, it still has to be taught to walk and talk and all these things. So
yeah, you ever hear those cases of the twins separated at birth, and they like have the same brand of toothpaste, they have like the same like everything, like but the twins that like aren't separated at birth, they try to develop different habits. You guys ever hear this?
No.
Like the studies of twins separated at birth, like they'll be oddly similar. Like they'll do everything the same, even though they've never met each other sometimes. There's a bunch of studies in psychology on this.
I mean, I think I ran into maybe 2 copies of twins when I was in high school, and it was very interesting. And there was only one instance of, hey, this person showed up to the other person's class and nobody could tell the difference. It wasn't a major thing, but it did happen, and it was kind of a joke. Some people knew about it, and some people didn't. But they did it. You know what I mean? It's not like it was the SAT or anything, like, but it happened.
Yeah, that's this concept that we've been talking about. The notion of the universal man or whatever, or the notion of equality. I think it's obviously it's a modern concept, but people who all had their unique traditions and ways of life, they didn't think of anything like equality. Right? The Greeks, you know, even the people that thought like, all right, there's man and God, and you know, they thought of all these distinctions, right? But they thought of the non-Greeks sort of as barbarians, right? But the universalists were sort of multicultural, right? So it's interesting, right? How like, is there like, you know, does everybody have to behave the same way, right? You know, it's kind of like going back to this idea of like, you know, cloning yourself in a way, right? Like, you know, would you even behave the same, or would you have to alter your ways, or, you know, can they create a copy of you?
so on and so forth. And of course, there's that notion there of the tabula rasa or whatever, where they have the mind and it's a blank slate and you can imprint whatever you want on it. But of course, that's not true, right? Every kid is born different. You know, they're like each like different, right? Like,
that touches me in a certain kind of way because not necessarily in that somebody's going to replicate me. Good luck. I hope the best with everything with that. But every time I have to start over, I cannot deny the lessons that I learned from wherever I was yesterday. So if I spend 10 years working at this job within this community, in this environment and whatnot, when I go to my next environment, yes, policies are different. The uniforms are different. Everything's different except for the work that's being done. So when I reach for something, and it's not there, I can't blame myself. I just need to search harder because I know to get this job done that this thing will be there because they expect this to be done, right? And then should I find it, then there's no questions anymore. If it's not there, am I the problem? Or is my location the problem? And what they offer to get the job done?
Yeah, that's something I talked about with the Talcott yesterday, right? I was talking about how like he had this title, living, surviving, and thriving. So I was trying to put it in terms of environment, culture, and then just what we want to make out of like what we have, right? So thriving would be like trying to reach your purpose, right? But living is like what we all do all the time, right? So you have to live, right? So the whole idea of survival, we've moved past that because it's like we're on a level of like relying on society for most of our needs. So it's like you said, it's like you can go anywhere and it doesn't matter, like what people are there. Like you learn to adjust yourself to the environment, but it's like the work that has to be done, right, is going to be the same. So it could be different everywhere, but the work is the same, right? So that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. The work has to be done. You taught me here, and I'm no longer here, so then I go there. I may be accustomed to certain tools that were there, but you expect me to do the same job here. But then when I search for those tools, I may have the ability within the means to make my own, so that way I don't have to ask any questions. But when I ask for a hammer and they're like, hey, what's a hammer? And I think back to my days of where I came from, like, well, this job requires a hammer. And I'm pretty sure this job needs a hammer. And then I come to you and I'm employed by a different, entity. And I'm doing everything that I can, but then when I need a hammer and I say, "Hey, I need a hammer," and they say, "What's a hammer?" You understand?
Yeah, of course, sir.
If they don't know what it takes to do a job, how can I do that job for them? But you know, I that is a rarity that they don't know. But if I can explain to them and they're like, "Oh, you mean that blunt object that it may be described different." But if they have absolutely no idea, when I'm talking to my leadership about doing my job, it's like that's part of leadership is give me the tools to do the job you expect me to do. But you
Yeah,
have
that's
no
something
idea.
that we read earlier over here. Let me actually go back to this because it's actually crazy. A little thing that I'm thinking about right now, as you know, where did I put this thing? Yeah, this is from John Stuart Mill, I think. He says it is questionable if all the mechanical inventions yet made have lightened the day's toil of any human being. And then it says here that is, however, by no means the aim of the application of machinery under capitalism. Like every other instrument for increasing the productivity of labor, machinery is intended to cheapen commodities, and by shortening the part of the working day in which the worker works for himself, to lengthen the other part, the part he gives to the capitalist for nothing. The machine is a means for producing the surplus value.
Yeah,
So
that
so it's
would
interesting, right? It's like the machines created more work, not less, right, or whatever. Like it's just kind of weird.
that would
Yo,
be
what's up, Neuro?
similar to a job where they give me a hammer to do a job, and then I say, "Hey, I don't need the hammer to do this job." It's like, well, why don't you need the hammer to do this job? It's like, well, hey, look at it. I will do this job without this hammer. You gave me a tool. I don't need the tool. You tried to, you know, make me do this your way, but I need less to be efficient, effective, and you know. So when I need the hammer, I will ask for it. But when you say, "Hey, this is what you have to do. This is how the hammer works," and I say, "Hey, I don't need the hammer."
Yeah,
I
blessings, Neuro.
I don't know if that makes much sense, but you know.
What about a Hebrew hammer?
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to see if his audio's okay. It looks like you're coming in clear, Neuro. Yeah, blessings.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, appreciate Elvis Trump for hanging out here.
Adam Cadmon brought me here.
Adam Cadmon.
More like Adam Dole brought you here.
Hey, did I do something wrong?
No, you're good.
No, you're good. Yeah. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, thank you for joining. I'm Untrackable Blessings, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I love seeing
sorry.
you. I've seen you out and about, and I've been here before, and
Yeah. It's always a pleasure.
I will always consider you a fellow person that is willing to be dealt with, and thank you, and thank you
Yeah,
for
of
having.
course. Of course, brother. All right. Yeah, you know, I greatly appreciate your time. But yeah, check out Neurojack's other channel. I mean, honestly, like, you know, put some respect on this channel here because there's a lot of good stuff there, including the replays we're gonna play tomorrow. You know, me and Unseen Warfare got into it. Just excellent stuff that we put together over there. Lots of different conversations Neuro has curated. You know, lots of different participants there. You know, you'll be surprised who's on the panels over there, honestly. But yeah,
I appreciate that. I think
Yeah,
you guys have, because that is really the main thing I'm trying to do is just curate good conversation. Because I mean, honestly, I don't have a lot to say. I'm pretty simple. I don't have a lot. I don't have like a lot to really harp on, I guess. But I would say that well, you guys are talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, go talk to Neurojack on Trackable. You know, you'll have fun talking to him too. He's this guy on the side of me. But yeah.
Yeah, Adam Cadmon brought me on this panel because I heard you guys talking about Adam Cadmon, and I saw this thing a few minutes ago that said Frankism is like a heretical version of Judaism. What do you think about that?
What you said, Hermeticism?
No, Frankism is Hermetic Judaism.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, obviously, the Hermetic stuff already is like, you know, dealt with, right? Because like Abraham Abulafia and stuff, like he commented on Maimonides and all this stuff. So, you know, so it seemed like early on, you know, they were already had dealt with Hermeticism, right? So, so I think Hermeticism was already synthesized into the Kabbalah, right? So, you know, in my opinion,
right. So I guess what you're saying is like there's a case for that as far as like
because it's in the 2nd century, so it's pre the Talmud, right? Hermeticism, right? So it's way early, right?
Okay. I didn't know, actually I didn't know that. I thought Hermeticism came later, so that makes a lot more sense.
No, Hermeticism is Hermeticism is part of the milieu of Alexandrian Jews, I mean, right? So they already know about it, right?
Okay, gotcha. So would you say that's Middle Platonism or Late Platonism, or?
Yeah, it's Middle Platonism. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And well, I was listening to something. Well, funny enough, I was listening to Handsome Truth. You know, our favorite, you know, artist out here on the internet. Just kidding. But he was saying something earlier about how like Christianity is like because it's a universal religion, it's always going to be like it's going to have like problems essentially, and you know, he was saying some other stuff that was a lot more offensive than that. But I think that was he actually had some interesting like things to say about it, and the people that he was talking against had also very interesting things to say, and it kind of shocked me because like it's so similar to what we talked about in a more academic way. So I don't know, but that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we got like so in terms of yeah, this idea of universalism coming from Christianity, I think that's got to be like false or whatever. I mean, there's not enough there. You know, the way I see it is like universalism is a project that gets like drawn up over time, right? And I think Plato and Pythagoras and Aristotle and all those guys, I don't think those guys can just be like ignored, right? In terms of universalism, right? So so I don't know if Christianity is solely responsible for that. I mean, right? And then secondly, Christianity is sandwiched not only between the Greeks but also liberalism, right? So liberalism and its extrapolation, right? It seems to be far more universalist than Christianity, right? Christianity still has particular cultural designations, right? There's churches that belong to countries and stuff like that, right? So it still has ethnic divisions, right? Whereas Yeah. So I would say that liberalism, and especially techno-liberalism, which forces universalism, if it's like a brute naturalism that's like forced, right? Or whatever.
Right.
So
Well, and that's the reason I brought it up, because a lot of times people look at the conversations we have and they look at other conversations like about politics and they see them as like compartmentalized. But really, if you look at it, like a lot of the stuff about the racial tensions and about Christianity versus this and politics and even like technology and business and economics and all these things are pretty, I mean, extremely connected. You really can't even really separate it in a sense. So I think it's pretty weird. I think it's just very interesting how, a lot of people are self-compartmentalizing knowledge, even when it's not forced upon them, I guess you'd say. And so what I mean by that is like, people think that you can ignore racial tensions, or you can ignore, economic policy, or you can ignore certain aspects, but really they all kind of feed it. They're all kind of like a feedback loop, and especially what you're saying about like capitalism and stuff like this, like the Nick Land stuff keeps coming back to mind because it's not that I agree with everything Nick Land says, but it's like if you fundamentally see the economics as basically like a technological monster that it is basically like self-replicating, like the world starts making a lot more sense, I think. And so at least you can kind of grasp like the situation that you're in or something like that, maybe.
Is it fair? If you're going to talk about isms, is it okay to create a today-ism? Like
right.
You are where you are based off of what you've seen and realized and experienced. You are you right now, just as I am. And we can talk about the past endlessly, but I am where I am right now, and I'm spending time with y'all, whoever chooses to participate.
Well, if you had this conversation with an AI, would you still consider it a valid conversation?
If I had this conversation with who?
With an AI, like let's say that you found out tomorrow that all of us were just like a AI version of people or something like that, and then tomorrow you woke up and found that out. How would you feel about that?
You might be with your burping audio.
Well,
sounds like he's being attacked by robots. But yeah, it's cool though. We can still hear what you're saying, so that's the important part.
I've been lied to by better humans than AI could really ever lie to me that I've seen so far. So I'm okay with it, and you can continue on.
Someone maybe in the back. No, there's not. So I don't know what you're talking about, Neuro.
But it is okay. Like I said, being lied to. Who is going to lie to me? That is better at lying to me than my own self. That becomes what do they call it? Like salesmanship. Like I'm going to make you believe in something that you wouldn't believe on your own. I'm gonna sell you this. Well,
right. Yeah, that's why it's like that's the thing that we were talking about in Marx, is like people selling themselves or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting the idea, because obviously the highest type of knowledge is a knowledge of yourself, right? And you don't want to sell yourself short and all that type of stuff. So realizing your own value is the key to everything, honestly. But yeah, blessings, Ja. I appreciate you. If Neurojack's not coming back, then I I think I might as well shut this down because we're already way 3 hours into this. So I greatly appreciate you joining Untrackable. Please come back tomorrow. We're doing another show tomorrow. So tomorrow 7:30 p.m. Come through. Blessings. Come by anytime, sir. I greatly appreciate your time here. And blessings, Untrackable. Red, do you want to say anything else to these people?
I'm good. Do not seek the treasure.
Exactly. A little extra thing we got going on. But I appreciate Untrackable. I wanted to engage, because he decided to join. Right there. We haven't had any guests today. So so there's been that whole thing. So I appreciate you guys. So tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, we'll continue on the topics here. Right. So I've obviously, so we'll be back soon. Thank you for joining us here on The Machine Lies, where we talk about the lies of the machine on the machine that lies. And so I hope you guys have clarity to see through the lies. What most people think is real is just flickering shadows on a screen, images of things that are not even real. Right. And you can't kill what you can't see. The first step to blinding somebody is getting them to open their eyes. Peace and blessings.
Mortu le serpent salut.
It's the bird, it must have been the bird. Disgusting critter, it must. We should have known better than trust this disease-infested ball of lust and carnage. Piece of garbage with wings, and she has the guts to sing. Get the bird, catch her, shoot her, I don't care. Get the bird, bring her down to the ground from out the air. Gotta tear her apart, let me at her first. Sink her to the level of the rest of us that inhabit the earth. What's she thinking? Does she really believe that she's above the creatures that work the dirt and the streets? See her up in the tree, looking down at you and me, like she's chosen over those that walk around on 2 feet. The bird, the melody she play, the music she make, rubbing our faces in the feces of the daybreak, trying to remind us it's time to awake, antagonizing and instigating my hate. The chirps, I'll turn them into screams. My feathered friend's end will justify the means. Disturbed, I'll grab her by her beak and swing her in circles until she's too dizzy to speak. I'll shake her from her branch, tear apart her nest, break her skinny legs and fry her eggs up for breakfast. She's just food for the fleas. She thinks she's better than me just because she's free. I'll shake her from her branch, tear apart her nest, break her skinny legs and fry her eggs up for breakfast. She's just food for the fleas. She thinks she's better than me just because she's free. When alive, wire lights, little metal rail right.
We're a marvel of engineering, steer me clear into the plight. Right before the bodegas open, after the peak of night, before the papers delivered, I sat on the corner and sparked a light. The same corner I perched when I zone dropped on the block first. At almost 5 o'clock, watching the sunspots of store clerks. Almost kinda like the zone was forgot, as if the grid had been reset and couldn't catch to the clock. Or the stoop was stuck in the past a half minute, and I sat in it with a Lucy Newbie drift out of my lips, taste half minute. Come on. And I felt like $100 in the pocket of a gambling lust. Should have won the shows and flow with the droids of destructo luck. Future toyed on the run again. The sky gleamed, the maroon is coloring, layered against the bluest tone from where the thunder lived. And here I was directly under it. Like some dejected little gray, they told to stay away for the mothership. Cotton ball in a blizzard of mystic for brain prison. But a thought that rode on a bus and came for conjugal visits and fucked its way into my gray matter. The tattered territory stayed chattering and nagging till it demanded to yell for me. And I tried to hold the thing back, but the meditation was otherly. Fixated on what a friend said and relating it to my struggling. Metropoliloid voice so damn smothering. When we were children of poison villains, saw the seduction less repugnant, and reserved the right as a trigger man with a backup plan of self-destruction. And I touched the type of chemicals that could pull me towards that function. It's the stuff that I find hard for discussion. How the fuck do you explain your own self-destruction and still remain trusted? Come on. To the question, yes, the city wants you gone, and that's the only thing connecting us, but the connection is so strong, so how dare you assume that I sleep when you're dead? This is well outside the boundaries of acceptable behavior. I will not give you the go-ahead, and you will not be remembered fondly. I'm throwing down the gauntlet, fuck you, this isn't your decision, and for all the holy fuck I give, your little spectacle is ended. But don't think for just 1 second you've honored your obligations to me. I'm serious, look in my eyes, I don't find this funny or whatever you imagine. Poetry and justice feels like when you combine them. I am not going to allow this on my watch, buddy. Nobody's impressed with you imagine sacrifice, device, or insurmountable regret. You are not uniquely pain, and if you go, we won't be sorry. And who the hell are you to put me through the banality of watching this? Cause many better men have gone for clearly better reasons, and I starkly must remind you that you have not even been trying, and that's the only thing remarkable about you. Stop me if I'm lying. We are always outnumbered, but we were never out-malicioused. There's no dignity for criminals, no ministry for the wicked. In this town, if you make a sound, you're the leopard with the most fingers. A league of extraordinary nobodies, the other teams bringing in ringers. No faith in the majority, no hope for the little ones. Sally pulled a pistol out, really got a blunderbuss. So what the fuck are you feeling that makes your struggle so wondrous? Enough to arrogantly pull what's left of the rug out from under us? I think not. You in the same barrel all us other crabs are caught. And if I have to live, you have to live, whether you like this shit or not. Come on. Dedicated to the drowning and the noble futility that desperate women forced to watch. And if I could Bhakti Hey Hara Hara. Namah Parvati Bhakti Hey Hara Hara. Hara 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 Hara. Hara 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 Hara. Namah Parvati Bhakti Hey Hara Hara. Namah Parvati Bhakti Hey Hara Hara. Adyanata Chandranata. Adyanata Chandranata. Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. Om 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 Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya.
here we are, and 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 here we are.
I felt the wind blowing in from the north. My entire aura radiant with the force. I was never lost, forward always driving. Clouds I was flying as my spirit was crying. The sun ain't shining, but Victorian streets are grim. But they look dim, trying to act like him. We walk lines so thin on this path of death. When your whole crew of fighters trying to act like you're fresh. You're falling already, trying to battle Lewis Parker. I break down your dreams and smudge your scars through the stormy weather. B-boy forever, too many fraud charlatans out here acting clever. What I see through all these acted out sketches. Whack MCs in suits hide behind dresses. Sanctuary, you can't step to my forum, but there won't be no tears in the shadows of autumn. The shadow of autumn. I see the shadow of autumn. When we part, there'll be the shadow of autumn. Shadows in the silence of night, candlelight just rock. I see fallen leaves and invisible teardrops. I caught her glimpse with her wide hazel eyes for a split moment. I knew she sketched out her disguise. Sunrise, sunset on the roof with the fiddler, playing sinister to all these lost hope riddlers. I woke from dreaming to hear these violent screams. In the shade of even sparked the L for a reason. It was treason, but this season you get it done. Cause there's no escape from the powers of the sun. As the vibrant rainbow glow, I saw it all in slow-mo. Straight dusted out, listening to Perry Como. The show was strength, was in the spoken word. I keep my ciphers tight like rhino herds. So kill talking all that blah blah. What shall be, que sera, sera. The war's in the stars, planet to planet. My Jedi skills, taking out all you bandits. Step these planes, you best take caution. But there won't be no tears in the shadows of autumn. The shadow of autumn.
Here we are.
I see the shadow of autumn. When we part, there'll be the shadow of autumn. Shadows of autumn. Shadows of autumn. When we part, there'll be no tears. Shadows of autumn. I had it all planned out from the beginning. I heard the whispering as these fake frauds kept sinning. I left quiet, but no one saw me leave. Then look where I was at to hear the whistle of the trees. Brown leaves fall gently, but you can't prevent me from rocking my from century to century. Got my beats, rhymes and hell, so fuck you serpents. Skills on stealth, so all you see is that hurt. Cause my life won't change in these weather variations. The ancients, all about the love and hope and patience. Cause summer dies, but there won't be no fears. Just rocking on through these autumn years. The shadow of autumn. I see the shadow of autumn.
Here we are. Here we are.
The shadow of autumn. Shadows of autumn. You know how we walk. So much of life ahead. White lace and promises. When we talk, shadows of autumn. The summer comes, right? The autumn is always with us. Shadows of autumn.